Next, it's the leap you've been waiting for years. The final leap.
This is where it all started.
Now, all your questions will be answered.
You are the one who's been leaping me.
Come back one last time to see how it all ends.
I want to go home.
The Final Leap at its original time on NBC Next.
16 tons and what do you get? Another day older and full of regret or debt. St. Peter, don't you call me no more, 'cause I owe my soul to the company store. That's my best Tennessee Ernie Ford impression right now off the cuff. But it relates to tonight's episode, 16 tons.
Tie-in.
What do you... Yeah, it's a tie-in. That's I'm trying to make it relevant. What are you doing here, Blake?
Well, I thought I'd sleep over and we could watch the finale of one of my favorite TV shows.
Yeah, we were just searching around tonight looking for tapes up in the VHS wall library, and we're going around and we watched a couple home videos and stuff of stuff we made, and then we're looking for movies. And, you know, we hit the section where we had like all the different things we used to tape off TV. And we're like, hey, look what we have here. Wow, we have the finale of one of our favorite shows. Should we pop that bad boy in? It's so heartbreaking, the voiceover of the woman who's narrates the opening like premise that gets you on the log line. Yeah. You know, she's like, so she should, you know, that's like Oscar-worthy material. So Sam Beckett travels from time to time, really right, once went wrong, and hopes with each leap.
I think we find out in the
Leap Home.
Leap Home episode or Coming Home episode that's the voice of Ziggy, the computer.
Oh, you might be right. The problem here is, this is going to be full disclosure at the beginning, is that, I watched this show when it aired, the latter half of the seasons, because when I caught on to it. Then I watched it in heavy syndication when it was on the USA network, when it was up against MacGyver. So I watched the crap out of this. Problem is that I haven't seen this show in 25 years or so, maybe 30. I'm going to go 30 because I wasn't watching time even by the time I saw you in college. So I have a lot of these in my old noggin, the highlights. But it's hard because we've only revisited, or at least I've only revisited a couple of these episodes for this viewing.
Yeah.
I have them all from years ago. Somebody gave me like MP3s of them all, or media file. So I have all like Next Generation, Star Trek, Space 1999, Red Dwarf, all this weird Knight Rider. I have all this stuff on this drive my friend gave me from the Podwits, and this was on there. But I've had it for 15 years, and I haven't plugged it in and watched any of it, you know? So it's like Next Generation was on there too. So it's like I have had access to it. I can't deny. It's just I've had so much to do.
You know, it's back in the day when, you know, a season would be 20-something episodes long. So it's one of those shows that I think when it's good, it's as good as any television ever was. But like a lot of shows, like all shows back then, there's so many episodes that not every episode is great. And, but they're all fun.
Yeah.
You know, they just don't all knock it out of the park, because this show went places kind of like emotionally that I think it certainly didn't I didn't react to as a kid when we watched it. You know, it's revisiting it as an adult where I was like, oh man, like the show is really heavy.
Hard hitting.
Sometimes.
Especially as we get older and we start to realize with our nostalgic glasses that are all starting to fog up and break and tint from years of, you know, viewing, that like stuff hits you differently as you get older.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you have a connection to it, of course, from like the childhood.
I don't know if we said it, but we're doing Quantum Leap tonight. We're doing the finale of Quantum Leap, the mirror image episode.
Yeah, season 5, episode 22, I think. And if we haven't said either, this is Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers. that long draw in tease.
We get so excited. We dive right in. We don't-
Yeah. You can follow us on social media and everything like that. Check us out, like us and all that stuff. As people say, you know,
We're
hit
now
the
on
like button.
YouTube.
We're on YouTube. We're now on MySpace. I've got us on MySpace.
MySpace, yeah.
Yeah. So who's that over there? Who am I talking to?
Do you think if we started a Saturday night movie sleepover message board, old school, people would come on?
Maybe. You know? If we had an OnlyFans page, it's just us talking. And there's no nudity. Because originally OnlyFans was set up for that kind of a thing.
That's what I always just thought was like,
Yeah.
it was for like artists and stuff. And then it just became pornography, like all things.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm joined tonight by the great Jay Blake over there.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank my co-host here, Dion Baia, as we take a quantum leap back to 1992. Three?
Yeah. 89 to 93, I think it is.
Yeah, so I watched it when it first aired.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you think about it, it premiered in March. I think it's March 9th or March something, 1989. So that means since we're dropping this in March, serendipitously, we're celebrating the 37th anniversary of the show this month. All right.
Good old number 37.
Yeah. Leave that on the table.
What's that? That's a chocolate anniversary.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, what were you saying? You watched this show.
I watched it and I was into it. I don't know if I watched it like religiously all 5 seasons. I just can't remember. I do remember watching the finale.
Yeah.
And I do remember that kind of universally people didn't like it at the time. And I rewatched it a few times throughout the years after that. And then I went and I watched the whole series, I'd say about 15 years ago, maybe. And just loved it. And the finale really hit me like a ton of bricks. I just loved the finale. It's my favorite episode. And as I was telling Dion earlier, I have like a Mandela effect thing going on with the finale that we'll get to later when we get to like the finale of the finale.
Yeah.
But Quantum Leap was created by Donald Belisario, who was a writer and a producer. He wrote on one of Dion's favorite shows, Kojak.
He did an episode of Kojak.
He wrote on one of my favorite shows. Well, he produced one of my favorite shows, although I don't think he was the creator. I think he was just a producer, Quincy.
Yeah, I love Quincy as well. It's up there with me. He did Airwolf, a beloved childhood dream of all of us kids. That show was great at the time.
And when Quincy went off the air, he wanted to do an anthology show, kind of in the vein of something like Twilight Zone. But at the time, networks weren't into that. They're like, no, we want we want like a main character or main cast that the audience cares about. So he also was interested in doing a time travel show, and he thought this would be a great way that I could do an anthology show where it's kind of different every week, and we have a largely different cast every week, but we still have our main characters that the audience can latch onto, and we can be in different places and different times. And so it was kind of a stroke of genius to come up with a show like this. Of course, it didn't get put on the air right away. Some of the early versions had to do with that his father had recently died, Donald Belisario, and he was grieving his father. And so early versions of the show were kind of the lead, the Sam Beckett character was traveling through time trying to save his father from dying. Oof. But that was a little too dark. And that does kind of come across in certain episodes of what the show becomes. And certainly the last image that we see in the finale is him and his Donald Belisario and his father. So the show in a lot of ways still
over the credits.
Yeah, over the end credits of the last episode. So the show ultimately still became kind of a love letter to his father, and even the set that they built for the finale, which we can get into as we get more into the episode. And eventually he pitches it to Brandon Tartikoff at NBC, and Tartikoff says, okay, now pitch it to me. Like you were talking to my mother, because I don't know what you're talking about. And so he kind of dumbs it down a little bit and pitches it in a minute or something. And apparently Tartikoff was like, if anybody else pitched me this, I would turn it down. But since it's you, let's do it. Let's do an episode.
And it's weird because of the anthology aspect. Everything prior to that, in a way, was an anthology. I mean, like Star Trek's an anthology, Kojak's an anthology. Those kind of shows are anthology kind of, where you don't have to have them in kind of some sort of congruent order.
Yeah.
So,
but I think he was thinking more like Twilight Zone or Outer Limits.
Oh, just completely like each story has its own thing.
Yeah, like Creep Show, something.
Yeah.
Where every story is its isolated story. I think an anthology in that sense.
I see.
And so
that is a harder pitch.
So in a lot of ways, when you watch it now, you can see that every story is it's like its own isolated story. There is a through line in that Sam's trying to get home, and as the series goes on, there's things that tie in and may have recurring leaps and stuff, and certainly multiple part storylines. But as a concept, it was kind of brilliant for that kind of thing, where like we're in like Chicago in the 50s in this episode, and then we're in Vietnam in the 70s in that episode. Totally different stories, but we have these lead characters of Sam and Al that carry us through the story that we can latch onto and we care about.
Yeah, and then once he's able to do, I guess he gets the idea when he gets off of Quincy, and then he instead does Magnum P.I. And Magnum P.I. is that huge hit in the 80s. So then maybe he gets the clout to be able to revisit this. And then another thing that I think is great on this for what they're doing is they can basically raid any set that, what is this, Universal that put this out? Like, anything that they can find that's already been pre-done for other shows, movies, or whatever, and just look at locations and say, how can we write a story wrapped around this? So they had all that at their resources at their feet, and, I read somewhere that he was also a fan years ago of the Time Tunnel, which was like an Irwin Allen kind of a show. And I love all the Irwin Allen kind of canon, but he does make good points when I've seen him interviewed saying like it's harder to get into that kind of a show where you can just leap anywhere in time. Yeah. Roman era or like whatever, medieval, whatever. So he did put parameters here, which are kind of interesting, which also helps us ground the viewer and the watcher. And at the same time, utilize, like I was saying, all these different kind of semi-modern sets and things and all that to have these elaborate, great stories that are very diverse in different locations, different eras. It is fascinating. Yeah, I mean, the show sets up a lot of rules and breaks those rules kind of frequently throughout the series. and later we'll talk about it. Even in this episode, we're going to talk about it. It just poses questions, I would say. The other kind of interesting thing before we get to the finale about a little bit of the inspiration for this was that Belisario was in the Marines, and in the 50s, he talks about how he was going to separate from the Marine Corps, and I don't know what that means because he doesn't say I'm going to leave. He uses the word separate, and not being a military guy, I'm not sure what that is. But so he goes to this base where he thinks he's pretty sure some of his friends are at because he wants to see them before he quote unquote separates from the Marine Corps, and he goes to the equipment shed because he wants to see if he could find a duty roster to see like where his friends are, and there's this guy in there reading Pravda, which is a Russian thing, and spouting off a lot about communism, and this he found very strange and didn't like it. He didn't understand it was, it was the 50s. It was kind of the height of the Cold War. And he didn't understand how there was a U.S. Marine who was so clearly pro-communism. And he says they got in such an argument that they almost got into a fight. And then another officer takes him aside and says, like, don't worry about that guy. That guy's harmless. Forget him. And that guy ends up being Lee Harvey Oswald. And when he sees on the news that Kennedy was shot, and they're showing pictures of Oswald after he's been arrested, he's like, hey, I know that guy. And his wife's like, no, you don't. And he's like, yeah, I do. I can't place it, but I know that guy. And then when they said he was a Marine, he's like, it was that guy. It was that weird guy
who was back in that time. And so in some ways, Quantum Leap was kind of born out of that. Like, I could have righted something that went wrong if I knew it was going to happen. If I was to go, I could go back in time and change it now.
Oswald leaves the Marines and then goes to Russia and stays there for a long time, goes to Cuba, comes back, and he's, handing out New Orleans, in New Orleans, like the communist propaganda newspapers or whatever they are, the stuff from Cuba or whatever. So he's really entrenched in those middle years until he assassinates Kennedy. So I guess it's so divorced from them when he sees it. He's like, wow, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And he could have did something. So that's kind of like, oh, what happens if I could have changed that somehow?
Now he does in season 5 create a 2-parter where Sam leaps into Oswald. According to Belisari, he did that because by that point the movie JFK had come out and his son had seen it, and his son was kind of buying into all these conspiracy theories, and Belisari was for himself certain that Oswald had acted alone. And so he kind of did those 2 episodes just to show his son that Oswald acted alone in the assassination.
And it kind of broke a rule too, because up until that time, they weren't really one of his cornerstones in the foundational stuff of the show was not to do big things like that, go into like minor characters' lives, normal people that we can identify with. But then I guess season 4 into season 5, he starts putting his toes into that water. Maybe the networks are kind of forcing him, hey, you got to up the ante here. So doesn't he go into Elvis at one point?
The episode, the episode before the finale, he leaps into Elvis. Yeah.
So the stakes keep going on. And I have a theory for that, which we can get to in a little while.
And so that's kind of sets a table for like a really imaginative time travel story that was very expensive to make. Unlike something like Indiana Jones, the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which shot all over the world and was super expensive. This didn't, and they were very economical about how they shot. Like Dion was saying, they were reusing sets or newly built sets for other things. They were kind of using those things. But just the leaping effect itself, the blue lightning leaping effect cost $12,000 to $15,000 per episode to do.
Wow.
And by
it looks great even when you watch it now.
And by the end, kind of technology had advanced a little bit, and they had gotten it down to $8,000 to $10,000 an episode. But even that per episode was, costing a lot. And because he leaps at least twice on almost their average, probably every episode. And then you have to take into account probably Al going in and out of the light door. That probably costs money because there's a lot of optical printing and matting out and stuff. So it was a pretty expensive show. And then apparently Dean Stockwell's wardrobe was hugely expensive.
Oh, sure. Because everything's custom and he's wearing something new, I would think, for the most part.
His wardrobe was something like $20,000 a season because Stockwell was like, no, he kind of put his foot down that this was a part of Al and he has to dress crazy.
And if we're talking about his wardrobe briefly, it's so weird to think in hindsight, like when I was little, at least, I thought he was wearing like the coolest stuff ever. It looked futuristic. It looked awesome. It looked hip. That's what the future looked like.
Yeah.
Now everything's very dated or whatever, very 80s. But to me, that was, wow, of course he's from the future. Look what he's wearing.
The future of the late 90s.
Yeah. It's like late 90s Zang, MC Hammer pants and, parachute pants and stuff.
I will say that like so many great shows, one of the most important reasons for its greatness is the chemistry of the cast. I remember I think Shatner did a documentary where he interviewed all the captains from the Enterprises or of all the ships on Star Trek. And I remember he interviewed Bakula, because Bakula, of course, is on Enterprise. He's Captain Archer. And he says to Shatner, he's like, I loved the cast. They were great actors, but we didn't have what you guys had, meaning the original series. The chemistry between you and Nimoy and DeForest Kelley was just something that we just didn't have. And I think that's true. I think one of the reasons the original series, aside that like this show, there are some amazingly written episodes and it's a great show. But the reason why it works so well is the chemistry. I think that is probably the most important part of this show is Bakula and Stockwell are so good together.
Yeah.
And Bakula in particular, he's so good and so well cast because you totally buy his being a hero, his being good, a good-hearted guy who wants to make a difference. And that's why he created the Quantum Leap project. And so you understand that he has like this moral code, but not in any kind of like anti-hero way, like a very genuine, heartfelt, good dude.
Like an archetype. He's just like,
and he sells it and you believe it and you care for him. You care about him because of it.
But then Al's counterpoint is Stockwell is just like, he's raunchy, he's dirty. He always has this crude, he's just like the guy who's lived the streets, he's like, and he's a womanizer and this and that. He always has a story to tell because he's older. He's a rear admiral, which I didn't even really fully grasp at the time. He's a rear admiral in the Navy that helped Beckett get this financing this whole secret project they're doing out in New Mexico, I think it is, or Arizona, and him being the guy in there with him. Yeah. He's coming off an Oscar nomination for Married to the Mob. I think he's in.
He's in that. Pfeiffer, I didn't know if he was nominated for it.
Yeah, I think he was nominated for that part. And he jumps into this show, and he's a guy who's been working since he was like 9.
Yeah,
he's in everything. He's in Compulsion, a great movie with Orson Welles in it, and I forget who the other guy is. True life story that like Rope's kind of based on. He's character actor all over the place in various things, and then as well as he's in 2 great Columbo episodes. One where he's framed for the murder with Robert Vaughn, and another where he is killed by the evil Robert Culp. With a piece of ice by a pool.
He's in at least
stop Columbo.
He's in at least one really great episode of Streets of San Francisco as well.
Yeah, he was around. He's in a couple of other things I'm forgetting now too, of like Quincy or something of that era where it's huge. And like, oh, hey, look, it's Dean Stockwell, and of course Blue Velvet and stuff. So he's a seasoned. He's almost like a Roddy McDowall of the era. He's been in it since youth.
Which is funny because there's, what episode is it? There's an episode I when we decided we were going to do, I mentioned to Dion like in January, we were trying to think we're going to try to do more episodes this year. I texted him. I said, hey, just a heads up. I think at one point, one of my picks this year might be the finale of Quantum Leap.
And to my credit, I answered.
Yes. And you're like, you really want me to cry on the show?
Yeah.
But in preparation for this, I went back and I tried to watch a handful of the episodes that were kind of most important to the finale. And there is an episode where he leaps into a young Al.
Oh, Jesus. I know this. It's season 2.
And Al is like on trial for the murder of this woman. And at one point, he kind of screws time up so much that he's talking to Al and he turns his back and all of a sudden you hear another voice and he turns around and it's Roddy McDowall is the new Al. because Al didn't, he was convicted at that point because Sam screwed up history. So all of a sudden there was no Al and they cast Roddy McDowall in that part. And he's only in it for like 10 minutes until Al comes back when he puts things back on the right track.
Now, see, I don't remember that. I was thinking of the episode where he, which is kicked to this one with the end where he's dancing with his wife.
That's kind of the most important episode for this one. But there's a handful of episodes. When we close this episode, I'll remind, if I can remember, I'll give you kind of a little list of episodes that are good prep to watch the finale.
And for me, he's like Rodney McDowall. That's hilarious. I don't remember that cameo. So, because I haven't seen it in so long. So I'll have to see that again. But for us, you had mentioned we were going to do this, and then they're playing them late at night on Get TV. So like one Sunday night, I had nothing to do. I'd seen the Columbo that was on too many times. I flipped over, started watching it, and it was the finale. And I was like, holy shit, I haven't seen this episode since it, I don't know, maybe once after it aired. Know it very well and remember the feelings of it all. But I watched that. And then right after that, since it's a 3-hour window there, they do then the first episode. They did the pilot in the second episode. So that's when I texted you. I was like, holy shit. I was like, do you want to do it just because it was just on and I watched it? And it's fresh in my mind.
How was it, having not seen it for a long time, to catch it on TV, old school style, and watch it?
It was the same. I see. This is the thing. It's like I for some reason don't feel like my opinion kind of cynically changes as I get older to a certain extent with certain things. I could be being a bit hypocritical, but I had the same reactions I had to it then that I had now. More so now, other things hit me, but it's not like I look at it in any like lesser light or anything like that. So watching it now, it was so much more insightful. The dialogue of actually hearing everything, and then it buttressed with the pilot where he's not remembering anything. Bruce McGill's in that too, as was it like Freaky? What's his name? Freaky Kevin or Crazy Kevin or Crazy? He has a crazy name in it. And to have that arc, to realize that he kind of bookends the show, and then also it plays a role in this episode a little bit too. It's interesting how everything just ties in together. All the different episodes are able to do these callbacks, and stuff.
So Quantum Leap was on for 5 seasons, and it had some rocky moments in terms of with the network, kind of throughout its run. Like I said, it was an expensive show. And even by the 5th season, the ratings were good, but because it was such an expensive show, the ratings were not good. They weren't necessarily good enough to warrant the amount of money because they couldn't sell the advertising space to pay for the show. They probably could have, but business minded, that's the nature of the business. But like another show with those ratings probably would have stayed on, but because this show was kind of expensive, they decided to cancel it. But they didn't cancel it right away. They kind of went into the finale with the show not being renewed and the show not being canceled. So they kind of went into shooting the finale, writing the finale, and then shooting the finale, not knowing whether the show was going to come back for season 6 or whether it was going to be over. So Belisario was kind of saw the writing on the wall and kind of felt like there's a really good chance we're not coming back. So he decided that he was going to try to write a finale that could work either way. One that could end up ending the show completely, or one that we could use to kind of springboard into a season 6 with a new set of rules, taking the show in a new direction.
Which is kind of what the network was kind of hinting at. If we come back, we want you to kind of have kind of a fresh kind of take on this. And what didn't help also is them changing the time slots. They moved them from Wednesdays to Fridays back to Wednesdays. And I always remember watching it on Wednesday nights. MacGyver was on Monday nights. This was on Wednesdays. So when they might have made the move to Fridays, maybe I didn't see those episodes because I didn't see it every week like I watched, say, MacGyver. But I watched a lot of them. And I remember watching one of the episodes I want to talk about tonight, that shock theater, which is the finale of season 3 into season 4. I watched that live. So I must have been watching it mid season 3. I wasn't early on like season 1 or 2. Yeah. I think I saw those in syndication. So, watching it from mid season 3 on to the finale, watching the finale live, that was a big deal when they were like, this is the season finale. And I think we knew something was up because I feel like they did make a hype about it, that not only is it the finale, but you don't know how it's going to go. Because I remember like it was must watch TV as opposed to me just catching it.
Yeah, something it's funny. I caught like a promo on YouTube for it, like that aired the night, and it's like coming up next, Quantum Leap, the finale. It will answer all the questions, and it's like, really, does it answer all the questions? Because I remember that a lot of people had a lot more questions when it was over.
It's just really just taking your mind.
More questions.
We're going to make your mind into a gumball machine that's falling on the floor.
And so the second to last episode, he's Elvis. Yes. And then he leaps into, what is it, 1953?
Yes. August the 8th, 1953, which is a anagram for, what's his face's birthday? His birthday is 8/8/35. So he made it his birthday. Belisario. What's his name?
Belisario.
Belisario. It's Belisario's birthday. And this is all linking back to like, you know, stuff Belisario's kind of like working out in his life and his stuff. Like you said, the fatherly thing, the catalyst for the show. I mean, in the pilot of the show, with the information you just told me, it's like I think it was a TV movie, but they stretched it to 2 hours for episode 1, episode 2. It's him jumping into a test pilot, having no memory of what happened. He meets Al. He doesn't know who Al is. He doesn't know why. No one can see Al except him. Al sets the rules for us. And then I guess at some point during season 1, he's learning everything.
Yeah.
Because by the time I started watching it, he knew everything. He's like, Al, why am I here? What's going on? But there's a time where it kind of made his mind into Swiss cheese, which happens again at the season finale of season 3. So it's by the end of, why am I bringing all this up? So by the end of, because in the second half of episode 2 is the pilot. He goes to the baseball game and he kind of finalizes with Al and he makes a decision at the baseball game at the end. It's only like a half-hour little like novella as a coda to the end of the pilot. And he kind of decides at the very end, like, you know what? I understand what my job is here and I'm going to try to do it. And he walks out. He walks out of the tunnel onto the thing and he makes the thing and it makes the play. And I think he changes history. They don't even tell you. You just see like Al, like, you know, go, like, you know, over the music. But anyway, right before that, he calls his dad. And he calls his dad because he's in like 1970 now. And he has a conversation with his dad on the payphone in between innings where he's like crying, bawling his eyes out. You can see snot coming down Bakula's like nose. And it's so sincere. So like Belisario's working out all the fatherly things till we get to the finale here.
Yeah.
You know,
well, he even does an episode where Sam leaps into his
younger self,
his teenage self, and he becomes hell bent on trying to save his father from like having a heart attack.
And that kind of also buttons to the other episode right after and near after where he leaps into his brother.
It's like a
that's
second
in
part where he leaps into a man who's in like his brother's platoon in Vietnam, and he tries to save his brother.
Oh, he's not his brother. You're right. He's one of the like platoon mates.
Which was my favorite part about the reboot was you learn, and the reboot didn't last very long, and it was okay. It was cast well again. The guy who played the guy who was leaping was very likable, and so you could root for him right away. But you know, there's a lot more going on in the present. You learn about the team. It's like all those reboot shows are now like Team MacGyver, Team
like melodramas,
Team Magnum PI, Team.
It all
Quantum
turns
Leap.
into like Bayside, wherever.
It's like we need the Asian one, we need the trans one, we need the black one, and everybody is.
Was the character originally a male? Put him as a female. Was it a female? Put him as a male.
But so the guy who's kind of like managing the project is Ernie Hudson.
Yes, because he was in an earlier episode.
And you find out that the reason why he joined the project was because he was the guy that Sam leaped into in Vietnam.
Oh God, that's crazy.
So he's like, I came back and everything's like, I didn't remember what happened, but everybody was alive. And he's like, and when I heard about the Quantum Leap project and this guy, Sam Beckett, who was lost, he's like, I realized that that's what happened. Like he leaped into me. And so,
because I knew his brother, and then he understands it.
And so I was like, oh, that's a good tie-in. That is a good tie-in.
I gotta give you that. I gotta give you that. That's pretty good. And the other part for me, that whole episode, the only thing I remember, which like another thing that just gets me verklempt, is that at some point the platoon like hides from the VC, and you see the VC bringing like POWs by, and then it's like they hold it, and you only find out later. One of them looks back, and then you find out later, like when they're looking at photos, because a photo is taken. When it looks back, it's Al as a POW in Nam.
Yeah.
And that just is such a gut punch. And then you realize part of Al's past is that, you know, Al had a wife, lovingly married. Al goes to Nam, and like any, you know, soldier that's away, like in World War II, whatever, you don't know what's happening, World War I. And in Nam, he's captured, he's missing in action, MIA. And his wife, after a while, just gives up and thinks he's dead or whatever, and leaves him and remarries.
Yeah.
It's like Bruce Dern in freaking Black Sunday, man. That Bruce Dern's performance in that movie makes the movie. But so that messes Al's life up.
It's even more tragic than you remember because, like all things, like Sam's not really there to save his brother. He's there for some other reason. But he wants to save his brother, and Al loves him so much that he helps him save his brother. And in doing so, because he helped him save his brother, Al spends 2 more years in the POW camp than he originally spent in the original timeline. So,
which begs the question of the wraparound of how this ends this season finale.
Yeah.
And then it opens up a whole can of worms of questions of the butterfly effect.
Yeah. So
it's like it just ends up going in circles. We all, we have to square a circle. A circle is square, and I don't know if it can be circled or squared.
So for people that don't know the show very well, Sam Beckett is a scientist, and he's a brilliant guy. He's got like 7 degrees, and he's a martial artist, and he speaks like 8 languages, and
he's a doctor.
He's got doctorates in this, that, and the other thing, and he's a medical doctor, and he's got a quantum physics degree, and he creates this quantum leap project. And
kind of like on the string theory he's going off of, which is very forward thinking in the time frame. 'Cause everyone's bringing the string theory up now. All these other things of like how physics and all these scientists have neglected the string theory for like 60 years. And why is that? It's a rabbit hole you can get down. Is it a conspiracy theory or whatever? But, if Einstein proves that we can travel in time, why haven't we been ever going down that? But Sam Beckett's gung-ho. He's going to do it.
Yeah. And so this, I don't know if you remember, they're going to lose funding.
Yes.
Because
Al has to go fight it.
Because they haven't had results. So that's why Sam leaps earlier than he's supposed to.
Yeah.
He has to show that they can do something. So he gets into the Quantum Leap Accelerator.
With not necessarily having an objective of what's going to happen or what he's going to do. He's just almost testing to see if his theory works. Because that's how the pilot actually starts off. It sets everything up so good in like 2 minutes. Some girls broke down in the desert. Her tires are flashing. It's future because everything's like looks like it's from the Last Starfighter. And Dean Stockwell pulls up in his Last Starfighter kind of car. What's wrong, baby? You need a ride? Gets in the car. She's driving, and then she sees the lights over the horizon of the mountain. She's like, something's going on over there. And Dean Stockwell's like, yeah, there is. And he gets a phone call, and it's Gushy saying, he's doing it now. He's leaping. And then he hits the floor. He's like, hold on, baby. And they do like 200 miles an hour to get there. And then it starts. So then you realize, like you're saying, that, yeah, they were going to like cut funding and Dr. Sam Beckett just jumps in just to see what happens.
Just to see if they can get some kind of results.
It's like The Fly.
And so then the concept of the show is he travels back in time. The science and the rules, they're a little
wonky,
loose throughout the show. But the gist of it is his consciousness leaps into somebody in the past. And that person's consciousness leaps into his body in the future or present of the show. And we never really see too much of what's happening in the waiting room, as they call it.
Yeah.
Later in the seasons, we see a little bit of that. But
I feel like in there, so in there, when they do have interactions in the waiting room with the people that you see, it's the actor who he's in. But to them, we're seeing
so like Al seeing Sam.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Just like Al sees when he's in the holographic room, he sees the person that he is, but he knows it's Sam.
So Al's not seeing Sam.
No.
In the holographic
So like
world.
when Sam
he looks at his
leaps
reflection
into like a hot woman.
Yeah, Al's seeing that.
He's seeing that, and so Al's like, he's a little raunchy too. Because he's seeing an attractive woman, and Al's a bit of a womanizer.
And then so,
but in a nutshell, then they discover that he needs to put something right that once went wrong in that storyline. They have a computer named Ziggy that's hooked up to the internet before we all really knew about the internet.
And it's basically like AI.
And it's going through records, all the records of that like America has, to find out like who he is, potentially what is he there to do, like who in the vicinity is gonna die or something.
Yeah, what happened? What
so they create
report
probabilities
is.
of like there's an 80% chance that you're here to help that person. And then once Sam helps whoever he's there to help, rights that wrong, he leaps to the next body, the next person, the next mission.
And
as the show says in the beginning, he leaps, trying to get home because he doesn't really know how to. So he's there
hoping
to do
that
good.
Each leap is the next leap is the leap home. Yeah.
Yeah. He's trying to get home, but to get home, he needs to change these lives along the way.
And he doesn't know if he's being led by God or some other sort of figure. But Belisario says, am I saying that right? Belisario?
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, though, also, too, when the people come back, it's almost like they, in his mind, it's never been addressed, but almost like they have no memory of the incident, like you said with Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
So he says that kind of made me think of the people you always hear about who had like alien encounters and stuff like that. Those people come back, have this weird memory of what happened. He says, what happens if every alien encounter was like, say, Sam leaping or something?
Yeah.
And also this leads credence later on into our finale, which we'll get into, is the Stupa character, Steve, Russian Steve.
Yeah.
Played by the great McCaddy. What is he? Is he we can open that barrel when we get there.
Yeah, well, so I mean, those are the basic rules that we're kind of setting up.
But like what you said to me, which I didn't realize. So then if they have Roddy McDowell show up there, that means there is sort of a butterfly effect of what he's doing.
Definitely.
So sometimes
much so that in the episode season 4 premiere,
when they switch.
So when Al and Sam switch and Sam gets to go back to the present, which is everybody's seeing him as Al, which is weird. So like Al's girlfriend is seeing Al make out with Sam's wife.
and Sam's wife has to make out with Al.
Yeah. And I think they even have sex by the end of the episode.
Oh, good one on even Al's like, hey, man, I get it either way. I wasn't even there for it, and I can put it on notch on my belt.
Season 1, there's an episode where, and I didn't watch this, I didn't rewatch this episode, so I am going to gather that Sam recognizes her. Terry Hatcher. There's a Terry Hatcher episode.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. And it's his wife, right?
Well, Sam believes that he is left at the altar in the future. That he was in love with someone, they were in love. He gets kind of like left at the altar. A runaway bride situation. It's Terry Hatcher. And what Sam does in that episode is what allows them to get married in the future. Because she has something to do with like an abusive father or something, and he helped her with that, and that was what he was there to save. And in taking care of that, she then was like emotionally stable enough to not run away. So even that's a butterfly. He's married to the Terry Hatcher character, who's not played by Terry Hatcher in the future. But then even that is the result of something that he changed in the past.
But then, so with him having that kind of spotty memory at first, and Al necessarily doesn't want to help him remember things because Al wants him to remember it for himself. When he does these retrovert changes, Al can tell him about them, maybe.
Yeah.
But the Sam, I wonder, does it pop into Sam's mind what's happened? Does he suddenly realize that he has a wife in season 1? You know what I mean? Did he not have a wife until then?
He ends up not knowing or remembering. And what I'm saying is I think maybe more of a fan theory than like canon. I mean, definitely the Terry Hatcher character is the same character as the woman he's married to.
Yeah.
It's up to fan debate whether he was actually married and just remembered it wrong because of his Swiss cheese memory, or if that he in fact changed something in the past that allowed them to get married in the future. He doesn't know he's married when he shows back up, and they attribute it in that episode to his Swiss cheese memory. And he's like, why didn't Al ever tell me? And she's like, because I told him not to tell you because I knew that if you knew I was here, you couldn't do what you needed to do, which was like make out with other women. Because Sam is such a good dude that if he was married, he wouldn't make out with another woman.
Yeah, but he's it's a far bigger power he's doing. He's inhabiting these people alive. He's not a priest.
Yeah.
So he's got to be able to have some sort of concession for the bigger picture.
She felt that he wasn't going to be able to do his job.
Yeah, but then it also lends to the idea that she can walk into the imaging chamber with Al and just not have Al touch her, and she can watch the whole thing too and see what he's doing.
That's true.
Are you sure you want to come in or something? And then Al's there like, "Hey, Sam, I wouldn't do that if I were you, Sam. Because your wife's here."
Okay, so we're running all over the
yeah. So we set up. So this is
One thing I will say, what you brought up, was you think by season 5, the network was like, we need things to change. Yeah. And that, I think, is how the evil leapers come into play, is because I think the network wanted like villains. Like very definite villains, and I think they're only in a handful of episodes.
I think they're like in 3 maybe.
There's like a woman and a woman Al and a woman Sam, and they're making things wrong that once went right. So much so that I think their first episode is trying to undo the Jimmy episode,
Jimmy LaMotta.
The Down syndrome episode, because Sam had changed things, and they kind of imply that like they're the ones that screwed it up in the first place, and they're trying to screw it up again.
Well, 2 things is they attribute themselves like crawling out of hell. So there's all that fan speculation of what they exactly are. Are they an alternate company doing this? Are they some other force? Are they demon? Who knows what they are? I think she finally adopts him to his side, and then they end up like fusing together, or they do something and they help each other out or something like that. But that episode as well, the original Jimmy episode, is something too, which hits harder too, was a real gut punch from that, with when like Al's trying to explain a scene to him, and and Al starts talking about, there's this girl I remember when she was 12, and he's like, Sam's like, not now, Al, and he's like, she was retarded, Sam, and it's like, oh, and it's like, oh, they're throwing that word around even in the late 90s, it's still, and he's like, and it says like it was my sister, and she was put in a home when we were young, and she died of a pneumonia. Who dies of pneumonia in 1953 in a hospital, Sam? It's like it suddenly realizes, like, it really humanizes Al. And of course, I'm crying, and it's like, oh my God. It's only what I would say a minute long. Yeah. But it opens this whole other like deepness for Al, and you understand him and stuff like that. And then that slingboards into the episode again, the shock theater episode, where where I think all this starts happening, which ends up us ending with the finale.
Okay. Well, you want to talk? You want to before we actually fully dive into the finale?
Sure.
You want to dive into shock
Well, I mean,
theater?
I was thinking of favorite episodes. Do you have any highlights quickly that you? I'm not going to remember as much as you will, but do you have any favorites that you liked that stand out for you?
A lot of the ones that we already talked about. I loved the return home, the leap home 2-parter, the one with his dad and his brother. I remember that one fondly. There's a lot of little moments, like the jokey things, like that there's some episode where he's at like a banquet and someone's choking, and he gives him the Heimlich maneuver. And as he's walking away, somebody comes over to the guy who was choking. He's like, "Are you okay, Dr. Heimlich?" Which is it's one of the great jokes of the whole series.
And they did another one with Trump, where they had like, he's in a cab driving, like he's a cabbie, and there's a young Trump in the back seat, like as a kid, and then he was like, "Yo, my name's Donald." Like, "Come on, Mr. Trump." And then I saw them reprise that on what's his Colbert's show. They did that like I guess in 2016, and they brought Bakula back, so it's like his only reprisal as the character, where Colbert is like, "I was watching Quantum Leap, so I wanted to try to undo that moment on Quantum Leap, so let's Quantum Leap in." And so they had Bakula in the character as the cabbie, and they had a kid they were talking to, but there's little things where they end up putting, like, I remember fondly, I don't remember the episode too well, except it was scary, but at the very end of it, it's Stephen King is the next door neighbor kid. Yeah. And so I always love, like you're saying, these little in-jokes if you don't pick them up.
Like he shows Michael Jackson the moonwalk when Michael Jackson's a little boy. And
yeah.
Or there's the one where maybe it's when he's a priest. There's some episode where there's a guy who's a boxer, and he's like, "I gotta go and work at the meat plant." And he's like, "Oh, I saw a movie once where a guy he practices boxing, and he's petting the thing, and the guy closes the locker, and it's Sylvester Stallone." Yeah. But in terms of episodes, like Shock Theater was one, the Jimmy episode was one. Most for the ones that really stick out, other than just the jokes, it's like it's the emotional ones. The one MIA, which is the one with Al's wife, that is kind of the important episode for this one. The ones that kind of really, the ones I remember most are the ones that kind of emotionally affected me.
In the finale of that episode, it's like Al has a moment with his wife, even though he's a hologram, and she's dancing to, I think, Moonlight in Vermont. No, not Moonlight. It was Georgia, right?
Georgia on My Mind, yeah.
Yeah, with Ray Charles's version. And he kind of dances with her. It's a very touching, sad scene because she's like trying to, I guess, make the decision about what she's going to do with the marriage. And he, so that's the end of, we know how it goes until the finale.
Yeah.
The thing with season 3's finale, episode 22, is called Shock Theater. He leaps into an asylum and he's about to get ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. And it's Bruce A. Young giving it to him, who we just had on the last episode on Trespass. He played Raymond, the pimp kind of looking guy in the Jaguar. And he gets electroshock therapy almost as like revenge because he's acting up. And it screws his mind up. So when he comes out of it and he's post-ictal, he ends up, Al shows up. The other people who are in the institution can see Al as well. And then Sam starts going through all the personalities that he has been, like different people in various leaps. They're now coming out and he thinks he's them, or has an element of them in his mind that are now exhibiting himself. So it's almost like he's exhibiting schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And it's a very powerful episode.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. He's the old black guy from the episode that's kind of like the Drive Him as Daisy episode. And
yeah, the civil rights episode.
I think the first episode where he's a woman is the first character we see him as. By the end, he's Jimmy, the gentleman with Down syndrome that we were just talking about. I did rewatch it because Dion talked about how we might talk about that episode, and it's a great episode. But there is like the ending is a little contrived. The doctor's like, I want shock therapy, and the doctor's like, okay, let's give him shock therapy.
Yeah, I guess they're trying to like since he got
move
violent with them. Yeah. So for the purposes of the script, since he got violent, they're like, okay, set up the ECT. But I think what sells that episode, they set these parameters around it where it's like only happens like 2 days. It's raining outside the whole time. So it's kind of like in this horrific asylum in like, I think 54 or something like that, or 56. And so you're still in the old system of very bad things were going on back then. This is well before Willowbrook. It's like one for the cuckoo's nest stuff. People would be left there to die. CIA would experiment MK Ultra stuff on people in asylums. If you go in for depression, you can come out all messed up. All kinds of stuff were going on. It was the transorbital lobotomy the lobotomists were doing in the 50s. So Sam's so messed up. And since he's exhibiting all these different people he's leaped into, is it Gushy? No, what's the Ziggy? Ziggy's starting to lose their track of where he is. So Al's starting to fade away because this keeps going on any further, they're going to lose their connection with Sam Beckett, even though Sam Beckett doesn't realize because he's delusional, because he's having all these like mental transient breaks, or he's all these other characters. So Al's trying to battle with all the characters to listen to him while he's in an asylum, while the doctors are watching him thinking he's crazy, while the other people in the asylum are seeing him too. And people do fault the episode because at one point they realize why Sam's there, so Al has to do the mission for him. And there's this little like rap episode, which is very familiar to what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And everyone now looks down on that and cringes upon it. My defense of it is, hey, at the time, that was the era. That was the thing to do. It's dated, of course, as hell now, but at the time, it's like it worked. It's, this kid said he needed to learn how to read for them to leap. And he's like, I could never learn my ABCs. I can't learn to read or write. So Al's like, okay, I'm going to teach you, because he's like, I only know how to remember songs. So Al's like, all right, I'll teach you a freaking song. And he makes this hip hop song up because they have a rap beat in the machine in Ziggy. But the episode gets so emotional because Al's starting to fade away. And then what sells it is it's Scott Bakula's performances of all these people.
Yeah.
I remember watching that live and him being the African-American elderly gentleman hits it out of the park. And then when he plays Jimmy with Down syndrome, I would venture to say that is the most realistic acting portrayal of someone with, I've never seen someone impersonate someone with Down syndrome to my knowledge. You see people do movies where people are on the spectrum with a handicap like Dustin Hoffman or what's his face, Sean Penn or whatever. Well, but you never see someone do a Down syndrome performance. And Scott Bakula is great. And he's so great in it that he got a Golden Globe for that episode. But Al's fading away. He's Jimmy with Down syndrome and they're interrogating him. And he's trying to explain to Jimmy, Ziggy thinks for you to be able to get back to normal, you have to have shock therapy again, which is a ludicrous idea, which you just related to, but it's logical and script logic of but how they get there is contrived.
Yeah.
But you understand, like, okay, he got this shock therapy because he was mouthing off and the guard, what's his face, Brucey Young, just blasted him as vindictiveness for abuse. But you need that to kind of write everything. So it's so gut-wrenching and emotional, that scene where it's like he's talking to Jimmy and you completely believe Scott Bakula is Down syndrome. He's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And Al's like, you gotta do it. And then Al's getting all like worked up and stuff like that. And then it finally
Al's
gets
like I'm going to leave and I'm not going to come back unless you do it.
Yeah, he's saying that. He's like, and then you can see Al's like tearing up because he can't help and intervene. And they get him down on the table, and then finally there's an argument. And I forget his name, Provost or I think it's David something. He's a famous actor who was on The Sopranos. He was in everyone loves Raymond. He's in Mean Streets, of course, but he's the doctor in it. And finally, the nurse gives him the voltage, and it leaps him out. And then it leaps to the end bit, which is them. They've switched roles, like we just said before. And now Sam's able to go into the waiting room and leave, but Al is now the person has to do the mission. And that was like blew your mind when you saw that end like that. You're like, holy
that was
shit.
That was a season finale. So it was like,
yes.
What? You have to wait the
and
whole
then the
summer?
next and then season 4 starts where you have the other end of that plot, which we were discussing before.
Yeah.
But I think that starts, my own theory is that starts the more craziness that starts happening with the leaps and stuff like that, because what's going on and stuff. And not to say that any of of course it is the pressure from the studios and stuff, but I'm saying narratively, you're starting to have him now. He leaps into Oswald, he leaps into Elvis, and then he leaps in this whole other thing that's not necessarily brought on as a traumatic event. He just leaps, and then he serendipitously leaps into this weird finale, which we're finally going to get to talk about. So I thought the shock theater also being one of my most favorite episodes, and I'd say one of the best, but because of Bakula's performance, as well as it being so emotionally good, and it does seem to have origins in other stories, and also which leads here because a lot of those characters are in this reprisal kind of episode here. Yeah, of the finale.
Yeah. So we just set the table for an hour.
Yes.
Let's dive into the mirror image. So Sam
sounds like a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, mirror image.
Yeah.
So Sam leaps into 1953, a bar in Pennsylvania, Steeltown, and it's just him in this old bar. And Bruce McGill is the bartender. It's Al's place is the bar, and he's Al. And he gets a beer. He gets Schlitz. The Schlitz,
yeah, Schlitz
that he has on tap.
He gets like we're drinking tonight. We're drinking Schlitzes.
But when he looks in the mirror behind the bar, it's not someone else. It's his own reflection. And so we're setting up. Right away. Oh boy, this is not a typical leap. Now, little backtrack, but relevant to still in the discussion of the finale, the bar they're in.
Yes.
Belisario having this show be such an homage, a loving tribute to his father. His father, when Belisario was a kid, his father owned a bar
in Cokesburg, Pennsylvania.
And Don Belisario painstakingly recreated the bar. So the bar they're sitting in is as close as they could get So much so that he's like, I want this here. There's a door. There's supposed to be a doorway right there. And they're like, that's not going to be in the shot. He's like, I don't care. I want it. And then
he actually uses his father's taps from the original bar as the taps on the, and I think all the pictures that are pictured, right? A lot of those are the original pictures he brought from home.
Yeah. So they rebuild this bar as the set. So again, it was like this whole show is kind of this loving tribute to his dad. And this last episode, I think he even says he had like his uncles come to the set, and after everybody, like, you know, when the day was done, he's like, leave the lights on, I'll close up. And like he sat in the bar with his uncles and had like a beer just because it was so surreal to be sitting in his dad's bar.
And he said he also too, like, even though he liked Bruce McGill, he'd worked with Bruce McGill. Bruce McGill's in the pilot. One of the reasons why they also cast Bruce McGill, they say, is that he did kind of remind him of his dad in a way, of that era.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why which perfectly bookends the pilot to the end. You connect with Bruce McGill, the great Bruce McGill. So that's a connection. And then we start to realize, as people kind of peter in, 98% of everybody in the bar is people from past episodes. And this is just throwing Sam off.
Actors playing different characters, but a lot of the characters are like there's a Gushy and a Ziggy. So, and of course, Al the bartender. So there's a lot of these weird things that are crossing over with Sam's actual reality. And then all these actors that we've seen in previous leaps, some of which he recognizes as being people that he's like, Jimmy
LaMotta and his brother.
Yeah. So, you know, it's not really certain what's going on. I mean, it's one of the strengths of the episode, I think, is like, it's not really clear what's happening. Is this like a waiting room? Is this some kind of purgatory, a waiting room before you move on to another thing of another existence of the afterlife or something? You know, as Dion kind of said earlier throughout the show, they don't really know what's controlling the leaps throughout the series. And they start to speculate that there's some kind of higher being. I don't know if they ever say God, but they think there is something that is controlling the leaps.
But he confronts Bruce McGill with that, though, doesn't he? Say to him, "Are you?" And he's like, no, you know, or
he says, "So you know everything." He's like, "Well, only God knows everything." And he's like, "Well, are you God?"
Bruce McGill laughs it off.
Yeah. So it's a really strange episode.
And Al doesn't come into it until like the third act.
Yeah.
Because Al's in it the whole time, but he's in it on his own. They're trying to find Sam. They've lost Sam in the continuity, and they're like, how can that happen? Because no one's come into the waiting room.
Yeah.
So like that means if no one's in the waiting room, that means Sam must have leaped into himself. Well, how did he leap into himself? And they're like, it's going to take like 2 weeks to find him. And they're like, try to condense it. And he's like, okay, it'll take 48 hours. So they condense it again. He's like, try all his birthdays. So Al goes into the waiting room and is standing there while they're going through time trying to find him. So you have, that's like story B. Story A is Sam trying to navigate what the hell is going on in this Al's bar in Pennsylvania, encountering all these people who are different characters, but the people he recognizes from other leaps.
Yeah. And we learned very quickly in the episode that, because he asked for a newspaper, and that the date is actually the day Sam Beckett was born. So it's his actual birth date.
And he leaped into himself the minute he was born.
Yeah.
He looks at the clock and he's like, oh, I was born in Indiana, so it would be an hour from, and then Bruce McGill's like, no, it's actually Eastern, whatever. So that was 20 minutes ago, and that would have been like when he leaped in.
Yeah.
And now there's a weird, I don't know if I'm positing this too early, but there's a weird fan theory. It's called the Sam's dead Sam theory.
Okay. And
the dead Sam theory is that some fans speculate that Sam actually died at the beginning of the episode or during a previous leap. This is based on the appearance of Stopa, a leaper who apparently died years earlier but remained in the bar to right it wrong. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's a lot of conjecture of how this episode can be interpreted, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a valid theory. I mean, the fact that there's not he's not taking over somebody else, that now he's, in a sense, an angel leaping through time, because that's what kind of would have happened for season 6 if it continued, that probably would have had him leaping as himself through time, not entering other people's bodies.
Which you think they'd be painting themselves into a corner, because we just did It's a Wonderful Life 3 months ago for Christmas. And you think if he's leaping in as Clarence every time,
Yeah.
basically, I mean, maybe he can control where he leaps and when he leaps to a certain extent, but then it's like, you know, he's going to be getting old. Time's going to be catching up with him. So, how, you know, if he's having to be an older guy, because when he sees himself at the bar, his hair is white.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my God, my hair is white. And people say, you know, has it been that? It's only been 5 years, the show, you know, would his hair really whiten since, does he not remember that? But it's like, you look at a president, when someone becomes a president 4 or 8 years, they age very quickly. So you think the stress that Sam's under all this time, of course he's going to, you know, or the first leap could have gave it to him for all we know.
Yeah. Just that,
You know what I mean?
that first
it's like
leap.
when you see It, you know, when the kids saw the It on the miniseries, his hair went white. You know, when he saw Tim Curry, the clown. But you don't know what's happening. And then also it ups the ante, because at some point someone else leaps in like Act 2. Stopa leaps.
Yeah.
And he leaves. And then no one has a memory of Stopa ever being there except Bruce McGill, the bartender.
Yeah. So we start to think it's a mining town. Everybody kind of everyone else who's in the episode are these steel miners.
Coal miners.
Coal miners. And
that's why I sang the Tennessee Ernie Ford song at the beginning.
even Stripe, who is this old man who calls himself Cripple, who's kind of a little bit of a hunchback, something wrong with his back and his neck. He was a former coal miner. And he can't do it
Hurt himself in the mine, and then because of the arthritis, he's crippled and he can't mine anymore, so he just drinks all day.
Drinks
Played
Pepsi.
by the great Stephen McHattie, who's in a fantastic two-parter of Kojak called The Summer of '69. But he's also in, I think he's in Deep Space Nine. He has a very legendary part in Deep Space Nine. He's the psychiatrist in Seinfeld. He's in a lot of stuff. You'll know him if you see him, and he's still alive and he's still with us. The guy who plays Gushy with the long beard, who has a terrible breath, the miner, if you remember him, he's in a lot of Star Trek. He's in Star Trek 6 as the judge. No, he's not the judge. I'm sorry. He's the guy when they get, I think, to the prison colony, the mining colony, for the prison sentence. He's that guy with the thing in his eye.
Oh,
No
he's
one
like a guard or
escapes.
something.
Yeah, that's him. And he's also, since you just watched MacGyver in the past couple of years, he's the Lecter in those 2 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when he's in the cell and he's like with the tissue paper and he's got a protege and they use a toilet bowl paper, whatever the hell happens. He's like, you must understand. That's the same actor.
It's funny because when I was watching it, I was like, he's that guy, but I couldn't remember what show that was. Like,
Yeah.
I remembered him and the prison, but I
Yeah.
couldn't remember that it was MacGyver.
Yeah, because he's like the serial killer that's genius. Because I think Silence of the Lambs had come out. You know, it's like when Shoot to Kill came out. They had the episode. I love Shoot to Kill. We should do that on here. But they did that episode where, like, you know, everybody's on the path and MacGyver has to figure out who the bad guy is or whatever. And it's that real crazy stunt where Richard Anderson's actually hanging off the river chain over the river. He does like the push himself over the river, like the rope bridge.
Yeah.
It's always in the starting credits. You see him like hanging there, like, oh, fuck. You know, with the water flowing below him. So he's in that episode. So everybody in it are like people that are really well-known actors and stuff like that. Not
Yeah.
only for, like we said, like Bruce McGill. You know, he's in everything from Animal House to...
It was
you know,
funny. A couple of years ago.
He's been on the show before. He was on Cliffhanger. He's in Cliffhanger. Remember, he's at the beginning on the plane when
yeah.
you know, so he's in A Perfect World. He's in a lot of character actor
Whenever
movies.
we get around to Time Cop, he'll be in that
He's
too.
in Time Cop, yeah.
A couple of years ago, there was when I was still on Twitter, somebody had posted that they knew him and they were asking. I guess Bruce McGill was talking about writing a memoir, and he's like, he asked me if I would help him. I don't know, should I? He was like sending it out to like a question, like, should I help Bruce McGill write his memoir? And I was like, if you don't do it, I'll do it.
Absolutely. I first knew him as Jack Dalton from MacGyver. I mean, he was, you know, and then to see him show up as other things, I didn't believe it because I always thought he was Jack Dalton.
Yeah, I was like, if I I would love to sit there and interview him for like a month just to write a memoir. The stories that guy must have with the career he's
like an Ernie Borgnine kind of, like he was a character actor and he's done like everything from like, A-list movies to like just, episodic television like this. Yeah. And I have two really weird Scott Bakula connections. One is that I know his stuntman Bakula was doing NCIS New Orleans, and Ted Barba is his stuntman, who was one of the stuntmen also in Point Break, where he's jumping out of the planes with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
He's a very prolific stuntman, but he was his stunt double when he was doing that for a number of years until he hurt his back doing a stunt, going down the stairs, and then he was out, and they ended up replacing him. So I have that connection, but then also Randy Jurgensen, our friend who we've talked about many times on this podcast, the cop that turned actor and technical advisor in the William Friedkin films. Bakula played him in a TV movie called In the Shadow of a Killer in 1992, and Randy Jurgensen executive produced that movie, and they're friends because he had to show him how to be a cop or whatever he did. They're friendly. Randy's doing a documentary now on himself called Real Cop, REEL, and he interviews me in the documentary, and he interviews the back too. So he got the back. He's got a lot of big names. Chas Palminteri. He interviewed Joe Pistone, Donnie Brasco. And this is not a promo for this documentary because they're still producing it. The guy who was in RoboCop 3 and Thinner, because Randy executive produced Thinner. So there's a lot of cool people in that. So I'm in that documentary with Bakula. So it's like we should get the back on here.
I would love to talk to the back. Back has been on the show before.
Yes,
Color of Night.
Yeah.
And when we get around to Lord of Illusions, we'll talk about the back again.
I wonder if we can somehow connect Dean Stockwell to the show, because it's a shame if we can't. That's a crying shame. We have to apologize to our audience.
Yeah. So narratively, dramatically, what happens in the episode is there's some kind of fire down in the coal mine.
Yeah, there's an explosion. They evacuate, but two people are trapped, which end up being the brothers of what's his name? Pete.
Pete is the Jimmy character.
Yeah,
I can't remember what the older brother's name is.
It's both of them from the other episode. The kid with the young man with Down syndrome, and his older brother. They're stuck in the mine. And Stopa there, who's been the guy who we talked about earlier, Stephen McHattie, who's been talking shit the entire episode, is suddenly interested in wanting to help.
Yeah, he's very skeptical of Sam.
The entire time he goes, I know you. And then he also says to him later on, he's like, I'm here to do this too. So he's laying all these little nuggets or seeds, kernels of, there's some sort of other subplot going on that we're not exactly aware of. But Bruce McGill sees him and he's interacting with everybody up until that point. Yeah,
but it's kind of brilliant how they plant the seeds of like what he potentially actually is in that scene where they go down into the mine and there's like the foreman or whatever, and they won't let anybody down there. And Stripe tells him, the foreman, that Sam is, health inspector or whatever, to try to, and that's when we learn he talks about how, Jimmy's scared, or Pete is scared because he can't see his brother. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, because of the lamps, they eat up oxygen. So they turned off he's like, how do you know that? And he's like, because I've lived it so many times. And he does say something like, he's got to save him this time or something. It's like, it's a brilliant kind of like seed that gets planted the way they do it.
And he's in the water. They're up to the water. It's cold and all that stuff. And the policeman that confronts him in that scene, when Sam Beckett, when Beckett's pretending to be the safety inspector, that is James Whitmore Jr., who directed this episode. And James Whitmore Jr. is the son of legendary actor James Whitmore, who people will know from Shawshank Redemption as the old man. But he was on this episode, or our podcast, for Them. He's in the Ant movie Them, and he's in a whole bunch of stuff. He might be even Relic. He's the old man in the wheelchair, maybe in Relic.
He might be.
Yeah. So but his son was an actor, also turned director, and maybe even a writer. But he directed a lot of stuff, and he directed this episode.
He directed a lot of episodes of this show, actually.
Yes. And then so he cameos as the cop trying to say, hey, hold on a second, before they get the green light and go. They go down. They save. Sam was right and Stopa was right. They save the brothers. They come up and they're okay. You know, it's the brother with Down syndrome. It's him. They all come into celebratory atmosphere in the bar. Everyone's having a good time. And then Sam, what does he look over to Stopa, to Stephen McHattie, and he's like, you know, it's all because of you. And then he like raises to salute each other, and Stopa leaps.
Yeah.
And then he's gone. The chair is empty. And then Sam runs over like, oh my God, is that what it looks like to leap? Did he just leap? Did you see that? Did he leap? And then people have no memory of what he's talking about, except Bruce McGill, the bartender.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you think of those fucking those nuggets?
Gushy knows who he is, but knows him from when they were younger.
Yes. He says, oh, I remember Stopa. Stopa was with me, came over on the boat with me, hurt his back, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, but I just saw him here. He's like, you can't. He died in 33 or 34, 20 years before.
Yeah. So
Stopa's been dead for 24 years, you know. And then we find out later on near the end of the episode that Stopa is also Dean Stockwell's uncle. He has an uncle Stopa who has the same condition, the same thing for the same reasons.
Yeah, it's a tough episode to discuss like narratively, because at the end of the day, it's like not a whole lot happens in terms of conversation, like describing it. The show is that this episode is a lot about kind of like atmosphere and like you said, planting like these kinds of seeds and then introducing things that we've never seen in the episode. Like this guy leaps. It's
very like French New Wave in the most positive way without being like pompous and,
yeah,
you know, full of yourself. It's very European, like you know, it's like the plot isn't that important. We have a basic A, B, C, D plot, but we're stopping to pose these really fundamental questions about the whole series and the whole everything. Because like you said, that we didn't know if the show was either this is going to be the last episode or is this going to be renewed and go into a season 6. So we're playing with it. We're kind of putting all of our chips in this episode.
So finally he has this discussion with Bruce McGill, and it's kind of like the curtain's taken down, you know, and we see, and it's basically McGill like reveals that he knows what's going on. Like he knows who Sam is. And
well, he says that a little bit at the bar too. Remember, he's like, you know, why did you create the Quantum Leap program?
Yeah. Like like all of a sudden it's like, okay, he's been kind of like a little shady throughout the whole thing. But then finally he just comes clean and he's like, so what, like, why did I wanted to help people. And he's like,
yeah. Do you think you've helped people? No, I don't know. And I've only helped one life. He's like, but don't you? Then he starts talking about the butterfly effect. Yeah. You've helped one person who's helped another thing. You've done a lot of great things, Sam. And then Al comes in, Dean Stockwell, he talks to Al for like only one scene. And Al thinks he's going crazy, much like the episode we just talked about, the shock theater episode. Yeah. Al's like, we're going to get you out of this. Don't worry, Sam. I don't understand what you're saying. You're laughing, you know, because Sam's like almost broke at this point. And then Al goes, you know, I'll be right back. And that's the last time Sam sees Al. Al goes into the door, shuts it to go and figure things out. And then that's when you said, as soon as they leave the porch, because he walked out there to speak to him alone, Bruce McGill comes out and replaces him. And he's like, he doesn't really, I'm sure he knew that he was talking to Al the whole time, our Al, Dean Stockwell.
Yeah.
And he replaces him there and he goes, all right, so, you know, what do you learn? And he starts saying like, you know, like I said, it started in the bar during the party near the end before he saw Dean Stockwell. He's like, why did you create the Quantum Leap program? Why did you do this? So when we had this final conversation, like you said,
at the bar, he says what you said, which is like, you've done a lot of good, Sam. But then he says, Sam hints, there's this good discussion. And he says, well, he's kind of telling Sam that you can stop. And he says, you will only do this as long as you want to. And then he says, well, I don't know what you mean. Cause you know, what's the catch? And he says, the catch is you have to accept that you control your own destiny. So he tells Sam that God hasn't really been leaping him the whole time, that Sam himself has been the one. And Sam could have returned home if he really wanted to return home. So that kind of sets up with the discussion that they take outside onto the porch. And, you know, Sam's like, well, you telling me that I could go home? And he's like, but there's so much more that has to be done. And there's such a great moment that I might get choked up when we're talking about.
And so by this point, again, all credit to Scott Bakula. He's really acting his heart out here, and he's crying. He's crying. He comes out onto the porch. He's crying. The interaction with Dean Stockwell, he's like a mess. And then when Bruce McGill comes out,
the bartender says, like, it's not, you know, like, he's like, well, you know, it's like, you know, if you're a priest, and he's like, well, I've been a priest. And he's like, well, you know, but like,
Yes,
even,
you have.
even a priest could take a sabbatical, even if it's something, especially if they're going to take on something particularly hard. And Baculus read of the line, you mean it's going to get harder?
Yeah.
I'm getting choked up right now
Yeah.
just thinking about it. Like,
Yeah.
it literally makes me cry every time I watch it. His line of like, it's going to get harder is like, oh shit. And this is where, like, I think this episode transcends like how good television can be.
Or used to be.
Yeah. Well, it could even be then.
Yeah.
The fact that he's presented with that he can go home, and he says,
or he's presented with the fact too. He says, you've been the one that's always doing this. Like you said, it's not, you just haven't knew it. But once you realize you're the one that's controlling this, once you can realize you're the one doing all this, you know, do you want to keep doing it, or do you want to keep, so he's presented with, what do you want to do? There's door A or door B.
Yeah.
Doesn't Beckett say, well, I want to help people, or I want to.
Yeah, that's part of what I was saying earlier, why the casting was so brilliant and the way he's written also, but the way Scott Bakula plays him is, you buy wholeheartedly that Sam is good. Sam is the best of us. And the sacrifice that he makes in this episode is Sam's like, I could go home, but there's something I need to do first.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was a time when I could have helped Al and I didn't, because he was playing by what he thought the rules were, even though he had screwed up. They had played, it's like Star Trek with the Prime Directive. They had messed with stuff. So, but in this instance, that's not what he was there to do. He was not there to keep Al's ex-wife, Beth, from remarrying. He was there to save this cop or whatever, this undercover cop. So he says, there's something I need to do first. And then he leaps back to the end of the MIA episode with Al's wife in the scene where Dion was talking about, where Al, as a hologram, is kind of dancing to Ray Charles with his wife. And, you know, she's like, what the hell? Who are you? What are you doing in my house?
And what is this first thing he says? I'm not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Which is always what I say when I break into people's houses. I'm not going to hurt you, and I won't stab you or tie you up. And I'm just kidding.
But so, yeah, okay, you accept. He's like, I have something I need to tell you, and it's about
But you know what? Not to make fun of the situation, but it's almost like she understands.
Yeah.
You know, which is like, it's almost like a Clarence Angelic thing. It's like, she believes him when you would think she wouldn't. Who's this guy in my house? That, you know, it's, and then he's like, it's about Al. I have a story to tell you if you want to hear it. And it has a happy ending. And then he's like, we'll start with the happy ending. You know, it's like, and they're both crying.
Yeah. And you and I are crying too.
We went to a whole box of Kleenexes watching these two episodes tonight.
Yeah, that episode it tells him the story, and he says to start with the happy ending, and he says the good news is Al's alive and he's going to come home, which I'm getting choked up just thinking about it.
It's because he's a POW in the prison of war. You know, it's you know, we know what's happening to him because we've seen it in earlier episodes. He's John Rambo. He's Chuck Norris. It's terrible.
Yeah. And she cries, and then the camera pans to a photo of a young Dean Stockwell, and the photo leaps. We have the leaping effect.
Photo leaps, yes,
because he's changed Al's history, and then we get the title cards, the infamous title cards, which I made the mistake of not writing down to read, but it's along the lines of Beth never remarried. They're going to celebrate their 39th wedding anniversary in June. And they have 4 daughters. And
they're living happily ever after, and they have 4 or 5 daughters.
And last title card is Dr. Sam Beckett never returned home. And that's how the series ends.
And I remember watching it that night.
Yeah.
First time watching it, seeing that title card. And it was, to me, was like, everyone gets pissed off by that. And what I meant by my opinion not changing, it's still such a gut punch to me now as it was back then. Well, back then I took it as that he died.
Yeah.
that Sam died.
Well, yeah, because it doesn't say he continues to leap and help people. It just says that he never returns home.
And people are upset in some like factions because it's not a happy ending, or it's not a kind of like well put, or kind of like a ending that sums it all up. But to me, it's an ending. It's eliciting an emotional reaction out of you. After that touching conversation with Bruce McGill at the end on the porch of the bar, and he leaps to Al's wife, and he gets that, and you see Al leap with the catalyst of Al leaping. We don't know if that changed everything. And then to see these title cards where Al never remarried, or Al's wife never remarried, he has 5 daughters. For all we know, that Al maybe never started the program because he got the funding.
That's why we're talking about this episode right now. It's because what the implications of that title card are what makes maybe want to talk about it. And in researching and hearing what like Belisario's thinking is and Bakula's thinking are things that I never really thought about, but lines like from Al the bartender, "You will only do this as long as you want to," they tie more into what Belisario says is happening. But to me, the sci-fi nerd who watched this 15 years ago, who takes this to mean what you're saying, which is like the ultimate sacrifice, which to me was he helps Al. Al does not gets back from Vietnam and he lives happily ever after. So he doesn't become a womanizing alcoholic. He doesn't go through all the stuff that Al goes through. Al becomes like an astronaut and this, but ultimately, like when he and Sam meet, Al's down in the dumps. Al's got a drinking problem. He gives Sam a break. Sam helps him sober up. They need each other in that moment. And
Al's a rear admiral, like we said at this point.
And Al is other than Sam's creation, is kind of like the most important part of the Quantum Leap project, because he's the one that goes to Congress and says, we're doing something that's going to change the world for the better, and we need money for it. It's Al who gets the thing funded so that they can do it. Without Al, speculation is it never happens.
Yes.
So if the Quantum Leap project never happens, Sam is stuck in some timeline.
The quote Terminator, it's some sort of retroactive abortion.
Yes, like basically, like the project is retroactively aborted, which means that there's no future for Sam to go back to because the leap never actually happened.
So does it mean? So then, then you go down. Does that mean he automatically ceases to exist? Kind of like Back to the Future.
He's either just trapped in time and on some like weird, spaghetti.
Kind of other plane.
Yeah, like, or that version of Sam discontinues to exist. And for me, when I watched it like 15 years ago, I was like, because as a kid, I didn't think much of it. I was a downer. I probably thought more about like kind of the way you were thinking. But to think of like the science fiction-y part of it, of how Sam makes this choice, and he's smart enough to know that this choice is what the ramifications of this choice could be.
But he loves Al so much to right the wrong.
But he loves Al so much that he's gonna take the chance or knowingly just sacrifice himself to let Al live happily ever after, because Al does it for him. In the brother episode that we were talking about, like Al ends up spending an extra 2 years as a POW because he helped Sam save his brother, because Al loves Sam that much. And
how does that revealed? Al says it to him?
Yeah, when he says like, "Oh my God, that was you," or whatever, and because
with the photo,
yeah. And I think Al tells him that it's like, "Well, I didn't." Somehow I forget exactly how, but it is revealed that.
I think Al turns and sees them, but then since Al doesn't make noise to get the platoon to help rescue them.
Yeah.
Then the VC successfully escaped with the POWs. And because of that, he's for another 2 years in captivity. And this leads to another fan theory that I've learned about called the Al was the leaper theory. And that theory purports that a deeper in the weeds theory suggests that the entire series was actually Al's leap, where in this view, a futuristic Al leaped into Admiral Al Calavici, thank you, to help Sam build the accelerator so Sam could go eventually back and save Al's marriage to Beth.
Okay. We're getting into it now. I like this.
Yeah. Which another crave. That's really, that's your tinfoil hat for you there.
So that's been my theory for at least the last 15 years, that Sam changes history to make Al's life better, and in doing so traps himself in time by having that Quantum Leap project never actually exist. Has always been how I've read it. Now, going back and listening to Belisario and then Bakula, and it ties into the line, which I had forgotten over 15 years ago. It's like you'll only do this as long as you want to. Their thing is that like Sam wants to keep going. Sam, it's the hero in Sam that keeps him going. And there was talk they wanted to do a movie after this, either a television movie or maybe even a theatrical movie, where Sam actually leaps home and then decides like, I can't stay. I need to go back, because like the person that Sam is, like, he can't live knowing that he could be helping. So in essence, like I get like Belisario's point, given like the conversation that McGill and Bakula have, Sam and Bartender Al have about, you can do it. You can control it. You can take a sabbatical if you want to take a sabbatical. Sam wants to keep going. That Sam just keeps leaping, but now presumably without Al, like on his own, which is crazy.
Which also too maybe lends the idea of him leaping without a body.
Yeah.
Or he's not leaping into a body. Maybe then, because like we said earlier, when they shot this, they didn't know if the series was going to survive for another season or was going to get canceled. So this can lead us down the road of they did the ending in various ways to tag on in case they got a season 6. And if they got a season 6, this could have been one of the avenues they went down. Yeah. Where, is that now since he's trapped in time and the timeline doesn't change all that much to what we were just saying, that people don't remember him, that now Sam is doing kind of like more of the Clarence thing. And then Al is maybe going after him to try to find him in time.
But if him leaping as himself could be what Stopa is, which is he leaps there for an amount of time, but then when he leaps, nobody remembers that he was there. Yeah.
And which leads to almost like that ghost theory. Like we've always heard people from the other side of the grave helping somehow. And that's kind of what Stopa is. If Stopa was supposedly a miner that was there that died and has been waiting in this place to right this wrong that had happened in the bar, and only whatever the entity of Al, Bruce McGill, can see him as, once he accomplishes whatever he's there to accomplish and how many times it takes for him to do that and whatever it is, the time frame or world he's in, once he accomplishes that, he disappears and then no one remembers him or what happened.
Yeah.
And then does that mean he goes someplace else, or does he go to heaven, or what? We don't know what happens. So he go, and then how long is it going to take? Is he going to die? Because Sam is clearly aging.
Yeah.
So it's not like, so at some point he's going to physically die, his body, even though he's leaping from time to time, So they shoot the episode. This gets into your Mandela theory.
Yeah.
Now, what is your Mandela experience?
15 years ago, when I rewatched it, we panned to the picture of Al.
In the last scene.
In the last scene of the episode, we panned to the young Dean Stockwell.
Beautiful picture, by the way.
Beautiful. Gorgeous.
8 by 10. Yeah.
It leaps from the young Al to the family portrait, Al older with his family.
All in like red cardigans.
Yeah, like
it's
a Christmas picture or something.
Yeah, yeah. It's him and his wife and like 4 daughters.
Yeah.
Of various ages.
And then I recall that there was still the title cards. Maybe the first title card is over the picture. I can't remember. I remember that it leaps to the picture. So I'm like, at the time, even like, what? Like, I don't remember this picture. So in researching this, for this, we find out that, and I'm thinking that like, okay, maybe it's something they did for syndication, because that happens. You change something when it goes to syndication. Turns out that like that is not the case.
Yeah, because in the last episode of MacGyver, when it aired, there's a voiceover at the last second when he rides away, which is they took out for syndication.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's even on the DVD. I don't know. I have the DVDs, but I haven't watched the last episode in so long. But I have it taped the night it aired. I still have that tape, and I have the voiceover. But they took it out, like you said, for syndication because it's not technically a last episode anymore.
So I have this memory of this picture. So in researching this, we discover that an alternate ending resurfaced in like 2018. First in like still shots. There's been scripts of the finale where we read the scene, but we don't know if they ever shot it. And it's basically
Belisario said that these weren't around. We didn't do this. So for 20 years, he's been saying, no, this doesn't really exist or whatever. But then in, like you said, 2018, somebody buys on eBay negatives in their publicity shots of these scenes that look like they were shot of Al with his wife.
Yeah.
And then in 2021, somebody drops some raw footage they found on, I think it's Reddit. And there's this alternate scene, like you're saying, and there's two things there's this alternate scene that you remember, or it's the other picture of the family Christmas picture. And then there's also one of the family Christmas picture, and then it pans and you see like other pictures on like the mantle of Al and his family.
Yeah.
And then there's another one where it I'm pretty sure it does the same thing, but then it pans up and we have this other scene that they have, which is like a work print they found somewhere.
Yeah. Here, we see the color bars, the color card, and
there's a
slate, and then we hear action. And then Al, Dean Stockwell, and the woman who plays Beth have the scene where he's like, we're going to start running a test in the morning. We got to find Sam. Yada, yada. It's basically what if it was a season finale, what would have set up what's going to come in season 6. And then we hear cut. But it pans across that picture. So it's like that picture does exist.
Yeah.
In the beginning of that shot, in the beginning of that scene, it pans across that picture. So I looked, maybe you found it. I looked and I could not find any like evidence that there was like an aired alternate ending with this picture. And that's why I was like, I texted Dion and I said, when you watched it like a couple weeks ago or last week or whatever on television, how did it end? Did it end with just young Al, or did it leap to another picture? And you said no, because I was like, well, then that kills like that it's the syndication version of it. So I was like, I think that I'm having like some kind of Mandela effect moment where like I'm remembering that this image exists and there's now proof that this picture actually exists.
Did you, how were you watching it at the time?
It was, I'm going to say it was like on Sci-Fi.
Okay, so it wasn't like you had like downloaded a bootleg or something, or
maybe it could have been, but I don't think so. There could have been, and maybe our listeners will know. Maybe there was a DVD release, because that would have been when I was getting discs off of Netflix.
Yeah,
and I was burning through like Enterprise and Spaced and 21 Jump Street, like by renting the discs and mailing them back in Netflix. So maybe there was an early DVD release that had this, but my recollection is that I watched it on television. So now in researching, there's another Mandela Effect thing going on where I found this video where notoriously, and what Dion and I watched is, and what's in the syndicated versions is that Sam Beckett's name is spelled wrong.
In the title card.
In the last title card, when it says Dr. Sam Beckett, there's one T instead of 2. There's a YouTube video that somebody put up the end titles from a tape that they recorded in Philadelphia the night it aired, and it's spelled correctly.
Really?
Yes. And the thought process is, which I don't fully believe because it doesn't make sense to me, is that the theory is that they caught it and they sent out to various affiliates. And so depending on what city you were in, what region, what affiliate you were watching it from, you would have seen the correct spelling. But the reason why I don't believe this is because Philadelphia would have been East Coast, which means it would have aired first.
In the New York market, yeah.
It was so, like, I could see that somebody watches it on the East Coast, Eastern Standard Time, is like, oh shit, there's a mistake. Get it to Mountain Time and West Coast, because we still got 3 hours before it airs there. We can correct it. But I don't understand how it airs in Philadelphia on the East Coast and then notoriously airs everywhere else or multiple other regions, and that they use the master of it spelled incorrectly to make the DVDs and for syndication. So there's this whole other, like, in some alternate universe, somebody captured on VHS that there's a Sam Beckett card that's spelled correctly. It's wild what's going on.
There's a name of that effect, and I forget what that's called.
So that's that. Now, some of the episodes I went back and watched were, because I was watching videos and somebody made a claim that in the alternate scene that we were just talking about, Al brings up Sammy Joe, the character of Sammy Joe, in the scene with Beth, I watched it and he does not.
Sammy Joe is Sam Beckett's daughter.
There was a series of episodes called The Trilogy. There was 3 episodes that I think are at the beginning, towards the front of season 5, where Sam leaps and is kind of keeps on leaping back to the same area to help the same people, the same person over and over again throughout different periods of time. And in the second episode, he is marrying someone who was a little girl in the first episode. It's now like several years later, and he leaps into her fiance, and he's in love. He falls in love with her, and Al's saying, "You're just having the residual feelings that her fiance is having, because that happens to, there's a little piece of who he leaps into is still stuck in his kind of his soul or his
which
psyche."
Lends to the shock theater episode.
Yeah. So he's in love with her, and they end up having sex. And in the third episode, there's another little girl, and Sam learns that, which is screwing with the logic of the show, which I was saying, like, it takes a lot of liberties with the rules, that this little girl has like her IQ is like skyrocketing, and that there's a 98% chance that she's actually Sam's daughter, not the fiance's daughter.
Yeah, Al's telling her this. Al's like, yeah, she's a genius, Sam, and it looks like 98%. Then he's like talking to the little girl at that point, right? And then he leaps like right at that second. Or something.
Yeah, and at the end of that episode, he's there to save her mom from the woman he fell in love with, from being convicted of murder. And frequently at the end of each episode, Al kind of says, like, "You did it, Sam. Yeah, saved, and now this person's going to go on and do that, and they're going to that." So we learn that Sammy Joe is Sam's daughter, never knows that it's Sam's daughter. I mean, she never knows that Sam's her father. And Al's like, and after this, in a couple minutes, you're not going to remember that she's your daughter. But she's working with us on the Quantum Leap project, and she has some theories about how we can get you back.
And that's when he's looking at her, and they're like touching foreheads, and he's like, was that when he's like on his knee talking to her, and then he leaps right there?
Yeah.
It was like a touching moment. You start crying, and then they leap.
And so it's the Sammy Jo Fuller, Sam's daughter, is a recurring character, and I guess in some non-canon novels for the show, but is never really mentioned again in the show. But that could have been, she could have come back in season 6 as being kind of the one. And the thought process is, then one of the theories is that Al would then leap trying to find Sam. And then maybe Sammy Jo they could have brought Sammy Jo back to keep it in the family as being someone in the future who's kind of helping Al leap and find Sam, which I think would have been a cool.
using that crazy computer thing he has. It always makes those noises.
Yeah,
You
like
know.
she could potentially become the new Al. Yeah,
Yeah. And everyone always talks about the new phaser or the new replica blaster or this or that. I want to see people come out with the phaser. I'd buy that in a second.
I would totally buy that.
I would have that be my cell phone. I've seen somebody recently talking to Shatner. I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw an interview recently with Shatner, and somebody had an original communicator, and it's a cell phone, and it rings, and he flips it up, and it's a flip top cell phone. He hands it to Shatner, and Shatner talks to. He's like, I haven't done this in like 60 years, and he's like, Kirk here, like that. And he's talking to like the guy's wife or whoever it is. So evidently they have the technology to do this. So if somebody were to make that into a cell phone, I mean, of course, I guess it wouldn't have. I guess it wouldn't.
You have to hit it to answer the phone.
Wah.
You have to slap the side of it. That's how you answer it.
Yeah. There's a very funny, back in the formative years, 20 years ago when Robot Chicken first started, I caught him one night, late at night on Comedy Central. And I was like, what the hell is this? On, what was that called? The Adult Swim. And I was into it for the first 2 seasons, and they would do these little vignettes, of course, of like, using like toys to like act out little vignettes. And they cut to a quick one where it's Al, a toy of Al I don't know if you remember this, but it's Al. And I think they really got Dean Stockwell because they would usually get the real actors to voice the toys when they're doing these little vignettes. And it's Al in a bathroom, and he's holding on to the thing, and you hear... you hear in the other room, they're in a motel, and he's like, you're like the mattress going, and he's like, Sam, Ziggy's saying you gotta, what do you say? You gotta like stroke the shaft, and you're like, do. He's like, there you go, and then they cut away really quick, and it's very funny. But he's making all the noises of the tricorder thing going and all that kind of thing. So that would be great. I would buy one of those tomorrow.
So the thought process of the ending title card being misspelled is that they were really scrambling at the end. I guess they found out that they weren't coming back. They needed to kind of throw this ending together, and that these title cards, which I don't know if I believe that, because if he was writing the episode with the intention of it could be a finale, or it could be a series finale, or it could be a season finale, you would have thought he would have had these title cards pre-written. But the theory is that these were just kind of like a Band-Aid that they threw on in the editing room at the 11th hour, and that's why there was a misspelling.
Well, I feel like that it's like that's why you never got past that work print of that final scene. They must have shot it, realized that they weren't getting renewed, so they never like really developed that scene to a negative to make it look good. And then they threw the Band-Aid onto the 2 title cards, and they just fade up to like a nice still of Sam and Al kind of out of character, standing in front of Al's place. They hold on it for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then they fade out, and then they faded the credits with the picture that we said of Belisario with his real father, like standing in front of a plane, a black and white over the credits.
Yeah.
So that was probably Belisario doing that. But
I also watched
a fan conjecture.
I also watched a video that claimed this, and not sure I believe it, because it turns out there's a lot of misinformation. What I believe is misinformation about this show, that the network didn't like the idea of the kind of a downer ending, so they actually brought Bakula back and shot a new end, like a happier ending where he returns home, and that they supposedly tested them and for audiences, and audiences actually like the positive ending, but then for some reason, to keep with more of the feeling of the actual show, they decided to go with the darker title cards. I don't know if that's true. That was just like one thing that I saw, and I don't know if I'd buy that, because I don't think, unless you also heard that from some other source, that's the only place I saw that, so I'm not sure I'd buy it. So that's an allegation.
No, I believe Belisario had a lot of creative control over the show, because I heard when Magnum PI was doing so well, if I get the story correctly, and I might get this wrong, but if when Magnum PI was doing really well, he was pitching shows, and maybe it was when Quantum Leap was on. If they messed around with Quantum Leap, he wouldn't pitch any of his new content to Universal, NBC, on the stipulation that they would not mess with him and let him do his own thing. If I'm getting that story correct,
yeah.
Either that, or the story was that while he was doing Magnum PI, if they didn't take his show that he wanted of Quantum Leap, that he wouldn't pitch to NBC to develop anything of like anything else he did, like Airwolf or whatever. So maybe he had some leverage of like, final say, so that he's the one who threw up these title cards. And I don't know, people say he did it. Maybe somebody did it on purpose, did it with the 1T, to screw the network, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Like a middle finger to the network for not renewing it.
As we kind of said earlier, I believe at the time, this was not a universally loved finale. The unique thing too with the finale, which we didn't talk about, is the episode starts. They had created a new theme for season 5 to open the show up, and people weren't as happy about it as they were with the original one, which is awesome. So at the end here with this one, you don't have the little beginning. Yeah.
Is it?
It doesn't have the opening. It doesn't have the opening VO.
Yeah. It just starts with, it has the original theme that people love
from seasons 1 through 4. And I believe it's the season 4 like footage
version. Yeah.
Cause the season 5 theme is still the same theme, but it's about like a more rocking, arrangement of it. So kind of like as a thank you and a nod to the fans who preferred the season 1 through 4 theme, they put that at the beginning of the last episode.
And it aired on a Wednesday night, which maybe at the time they were airing it on Friday night, season 5.
Yeah, because that preview that's like, and coming up next, the finale you've been all waiting for, where all your questions are going to be answered on its original night, Wednesday.
Which is how I knew it.
So,
damn it.
My question is, and I think this episode has already answered this question, universally kind of disliked upon airing, how does it hold up today?
I don't know. We might be alone on that. I mean, not alone, but I think there could be a divide. I did listen to people on the internet who weren't happy with this episode.
But were they fans of the show, or were they just like, this was new to them and they just watched it?
They were fans of the show, but they were revisiting it. I hadn't seen anybody who were fresh viewers. There were people who were like our age who had known about it or watched it when it first aired to a certain extent. But then there are other people who really like what was done. Yeah. So I think there is a divide where people feel a little cheated, where that's why I was saying before I was defending myself, like, where I still feel the way I do. Like, I don't feel cheated.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's tragic, that like I took it back then that he died. I didn't ever think of, like you saying, the sci-fi aspect of he's still leaping and all this other stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if this holds up in a sense of, I think it's a classic, and it's one of the most, it's like the end of the season finale of MASH. Yeah. It's like up there with like of season finales and stuff.
Certainly memorable season finales.
Yeah. Because a lot of people were tuning in and stuff. It's like the ending of like the Bob Newhart show, or like, these crazy stuff where it's like a dream, or, it's like all, they just throw
it's the St. Elsewhere, where it's like
in the snow globe. It's the whole Tommy Windfall effect. If Windfall effect, if people look that up, the whole Tommy.
What did we talked about that in an episode of the show?
Yeah, I broke it down because what it basically it connects. Completely takes a right turn in the last scene of St. Elsewhere, where the kids look into a snow globe, implicating that the entire show is in this autistic boy's head that he's imagining in the hospital in the snow globe he's playing with. And because other people have guested on the show and it's broadened, if you go on the internet and look at the chart, the Tommy Windfall, I think it's I might be saying his last name wrong, but look it up. It's touched everything, the universe. It's like Law and Order's universe. It's SVU's universe. It's Homicide: Life in the Streets universe. It's this universe. It's Cheers. It's 1,000 shows are connected because of how things have jumped around and characters of whatever. It's so they're all part of this universe. And there's another one, which I forget the name of the guy, that does it with a comet that fell, I think, in Yorkshire or West England. And this guy explains how, like, in his universe, Sherlock Holmes, Poirot, and Miss Marple, all these people are connected over there. So if look that one up too. I forget the name of that one. But we brought that up befue.
Yeah, I don't remember what episode and why.
I don't remember either. What would that have been? Why would that have been cogent? I don't know. Maybe it was TV. It was something TV wise, or maybe to timelines. Maybe it was like Total Recall, or I don't know, or a TV. What other TV shows? We did Incredible Hulk.
We did Incredible Hulk. Definitely wasn't that, because that was really early on. We did Night Stalker.
We did Night Stalker, the TV movies.
And then Batman, the animated series, G.I. Joe. I'm trying to think of other shows.
Yeah, Transformers. G.I. Joe, you're right. Yeah, we only did Transformers, the movie. I feel like we did
Tales from
another
the Crypt
show.
episode.
The Flash pilot.
Flash pilot movie, yeah.
1990. Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, so I don't know where we would have brought that up on.
Anyway,
but
we did.
Anyway.
Dion broke it down to us in great detail.
But they always throw those right turns out, and sometimes on these season finales that make them very memorable. And I feel like, if anything, this is one of the most memorable episodes for people of this generation. You know, like Blake put it best when we were talking about Star Trek. The original Star Trek's on a 5-year mission. We only get 3 seasons of live action, but we get the 4th season animated. We never see the 5th season. That's
True.
why, that season mission.
Yeah.
That's why we get in Next Generation, we get its continuing mission to explore strange and new worlds. Yeah. So, why did I even bring that up? Oh, so this is one of the most memorable kind of episodes, cliffhangers. So I don't know to answer your question finally, I don't know how what do you think? Do you think people revere this more now?
I don't know. It's so...
Have I talked you out of it?
I'm in my, I'm in my bubble, and I try to keep it, I never realized until I was on, joined Twitter that Seed of Chucky is universally disliked by horror fans, because it's my favorite Chucky movie. Yeah,
you love that movie.
I love Seed of Chucky. So I just always assumed, Seed of Chucky is awesome. People must love it. Why wouldn't they? It's incredible.
Well, that happened to me retroactively. As long as you've known me, that I've always said Sorcerer is one of the best movies of all time.
Yeah.
And for 25 years, people hated Sorcerer. Now, all of a sudden, past 10, 15 years, people are like, that's the best thing since sliced bread, maybe freaking best movie. I'm like, hey, over here.
Yeah, Dion. It was one of those movies, if I recall correctly, that was I saw this thing when I was a kid and I don't know what it is, but it was awesome. And then when you finally discovered that that's what it was and you revisited it in full, you loved it.
It was in college. I found it at Best Video, the DVD. In the cover, the scene I remember is the truck on the bridge. We did an episode on Sorcerer where we broke down the book Wages of Fear as well, that it's based off of. But the scene I remember as a kid it was the truck on the bridge. And the whole ending, so it's just the whole third act I saw of all the craziness where the guy dies and he's having to walk the dynamite there and all that kind of thing. I never knew what the title was until college. I went into this video store in Connecticut that we've talked about before that had everything that you can get out of print stuff and all. And they had a DVD of Sorcerer. So I got it, brought it to school, and then I made you watch it. I was like, this is the movie I've been telling you about. Maybe not, but it's been in my head. And you watched it. And I remember you were like, yeah, it was pretty good or whatever. Yeah. But I was like, this is it, man. This is the freaking movie. And freaking did it. No one remembers it.
Yeah.
Because it bombed at the time.
It was the same year as Star Wars, right?
It was the week after Star Wars.
Yeah.
Or week before Star Wars. One of the two.
Well,
and
go
Star
back
Wars
and listen to
out.
our Sorcerer episode.
Yeah. But people revere it now. It's like it's a masterpiece.
So to me, I imagine that people must love the Quantum Leap finale because I love it. But like I said, I'm in a bubble, so I take your word for it that that it's a split decision.
At least from the research I was doing, listening to stuff, it was half and half with people who, the diehard fans, which I didn't really go down the well that much with diehard fans. They may love it no matter what. And I didn't watch the reboot show or whatever, the continuing adventures that was on a couple of years ago. And I haven't read any of the fan fiction, but the fan fiction that's kind of not canon always really fascinated me. They did a short comic book series that was, I think there was 13 episodes that they did for comic book when the show was still on. And it's like Star Trek where there was fan fiction. And then there was movie proposals. Like you said, there was another proposal where they were going to do maybe another TV event with Bakula. Where and there was an idea maybe he would show up on a space station in the future, and I don't know what else was. It was Jason in space.
And there is Star Trek. There are novels. I have at least a couple of them, and I started collecting the movie novelizations when I'd be in an old like used bookstores. If I would see a Quantum Leap one, so I have a handful of the novels.
That's awesome.
I still haven't read them, but maybe I'll read them now that I'm all fucking Quantum Leaped up again.
Yeah, I was collecting some of the Columbo novels, and there's a Columbo Helter Skelter novel, which is evidently pretty awesome, where he meets Manson. And I was like, how the hell does Columbo meet Manson? And then when you read up on it, it's one of the most revered of the novel. It's not fan fiction because they're licensed, but it's the novelizations of it. So I was like, oh, I can't read through. So I you know what I did is don't tell anybody. It's only me and you listening. I bought it for the wife, saying it was a present for her, but I'm going to read it.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love this episode. And I think it has to do, like, as we've discussed, as we get older, like, you know, I'm a big crybaby when I watch stuff now, and people will bash things, movies and stuff. I'll see like on Letterboxd people, I'll read people's reviews, and I'm always like, lighten up, it's a movie. But to me, it's like, I can forgive almost anything if I'm emotionally affected, because to me, it's like, that's what art is supposed to do. Like, you know, like it's only real purpose is to emotionally affect you, is to bring
a reaction.
Yeah.
You know, if the property has heart, it could be a terrible movie, but if it or show or whatever, but if it has heart and it's in the right place and it's eliciting some sort of reaction, I'm a little less forgiving when now, as I'm getting older, like with the torture porn, like Cannibal Holocaust and stuff, I can't, or Irreversible. I don't know if I can go back and revisit that stuff, and I won't go look at Serbian films.
And certainly that stuff elicits a response, but
that's what I mean. Yeah.
But for me, don't know. Like, when in giving me this kind of response is like, I'm with you. Like this, I cry like a baby during this episode. By the time we get to when he's talking to the bartender, and then at the end, and then when he leaps to talk to Beth, like it works for me. Like I'm all in. And I think
I cried the entire Beth scene.
Oh yeah.
As soon as I heard Ray Charles, I was tearing up.
Yeah.
And my wife's
I can't even
hold my hand. I'm like, get
song.
off me.
I can't even hear that song anymore without thinking of that scene. So in that sense, like, it just works. And I just think it's obviously a really interesting way to end the story.
That's why it's it's daring.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's why we're talking about it 33 years later, you know, is because, like I said, my favorite episode probably is the aforementioned Shock Theater, but this is probably the next one, because there's so much in this episode, and there's so many questions in the heartbreak and the sacrifice and all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then like you said, it's the chemistry between everybody and how good everybody is.
Yeah.
And and it's like, I mean, it made me, I don't know. It's a shame Dean Stockwell has passed away, because he had a stroke and he retired from acting. And then I think he died in 2021, maybe. But like, I wish I saw him in more stuff, you know, as he got older. You know, it's like, he's in a lot of younger stuff when he's younger, but like it's like, aside from that real freaky scenes in Blue Velvet, it's like, I wish I just saw him in more things, because he's such a good actor.
Yeah.
Bakula too. At least Bakula did Enterprise, and he's done other things, and he was in the Gung Ho TV show that they tried to do, in the early 80s before this, and he did a lot of theater.
And it's very unwatchable, unfortunately.
Yeah,
maybe we'll do Gung Ho, because I love that movie.
Wow.
And the fact, like what you're saying, is that the fact that the ending, that we end on what we're going to call a sacrifice on Sam's part because of his love for Al, which is, like, to me, what the whole show's really about. Like, I started this episode talking about how the reason why this show works is because these two guys are cast in these parts and they're so good together. And it's their relationship that carries us through 5 seasons of the show. And some of the best episodes are the ones that have to do with them, like the episode where, in the Vietnam, or the episode where he leaps into a young Al, and the MIA episode, which is the episode that is the Beth episode that this is a direct callback to. And so like the fact that it has to, and it's also in a way it's kind of tragic that Al's not really in a lot of the episode.
Yeah.
But ultimately the deciding thing of the episode that Sam decides that this is what I need to do, makes him such a huge part of this episode. And I think it's such a brilliant way to call back to such a great episode of the series that this is, our ending of this is to go back in time to another episode and right this wrong that Sam feels guilty about not writing, even because that wasn't his mission.
Which kind of almost null and voids maybe the rest of the series.
In some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
you know, it hasn't always been about that. Maybe that goes back to the Al theory. Has it always been about fixing Al? Yeah. Sam's leaping the entire time. If Al is a leaper or not, maybe the whole entire season or the whole series was that he's missed it a couple times. But the grander scheme is with Stopa.
Yeah.
He's reliving different things through his lifetime because he can only leap within his life. That once he achieves and hits that pinnacle and he transcends, he becomes Stopa.
That Stopa apparently seems to be there to right one specific wrong.
Yes.
And is reliving it until he gets it right.
Yeah, maybe through other characters. Because then, the other thing we didn't bring up is when he looks at what's his face in the mirror, our man from the MacGyver in Star Trek 6, the English actor.
Yeah.
Because it's right after Bruce McGill says, you see what you want to see. They talk about reflections. He looks up in the mirror and he sees that guy taking a shot, the old man with the beard, and he sees like a 20-year-old or 18-year-old.
A younger guy, yeah.
And what is that supposed to infer? Does that infer that like he... Well, I think when I was little, I inferred maybe that he's a leaper too or something like that. But
which he could be. That's a valid theory.
And he's getting older, and he's getting older because he's been stuck there for so many years trying to. But then everyone sees that, or Sam is seeing
his true self.
Yeah, or what he used to be in his prime or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's why I said it was so funny to me when I watched the promo that before it aired, where it's like all your questions will be answered, and I was like, really?
None of them get answered, buddy. We're gonna track down that VO guy and beat the shit out of him.
I was like, really? They're gonna answer all our questions.
We're gonna go to the villages down in Florida and find his retirement home. And
I just like that is one claim I don't think you can make about the finale of this episode. Is the show that it answers all your questions. But I think it's
You're
great.
making some bold assertions, buddy.
And I love that it's weird and it's out there and that it's eerie and it's atmospheric.
Yeah, but it's not weird enough to be like, freaking experimental.
No.
It doesn't go completely avant-garde or I'm like, what the hell is happening?
It's Twilight Zone weird, though.
Yeah. Which is cool. Fantastic. Yeah. It's like, one step beyond stuff or Outer Limits, which I am completely Night Gallery. I am into, but it doesn't get to the point where I have to go back and rewatch The Sopranos. And I know you didn't watch The Sopranos. And people say when they go back and rewatch The Sopranos, a lot more of it makes sense. Yeah. But I remember my first viewings of The Sopranos, there were complete episodes where it's just like, what's going on here? It's like, I can't compare it to The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead did it another way where they would just belabor, like they'd have an entire episode be where it could have been one scene. And I'm like, I don't care about this. What are you doing? Sopranos did it in a different kind of way where they just go on these left things. And David Chase has been notorious where he doesn't wrap up plot lines. So he'll just let something fall by the wayside and you may never know because that's life. Yeah. And I like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But when shows, and I can't think of an example, get so out there where I'm like, this is what the fuck, that annoys me. But this doesn't go there, which is brilliant in its way. It just asks so many questions. It's like you got a pot boiling, you take the top off, and you don't let it overpower onto the freaking, stove. The stove in the tray and burn out the pilot light even or whatever. It's just enough where you turn the heat down, and now it's at a good boil.
Yeah.
and it's like, you're really asking some very esoteric questions that are just like fundamental, and we don't know what Bruce McGill, when I first watched it, I thought Bruce McGill was God,
Yeah.
but he clearly says now, he's like, well, I don't know but he knows everything. He knows what's going on. And is it all in Sam's mind? I don't know. Are you the dreamer? Or are you the figment of someone else's dream?
Yeah.
Lewis Carroll says.
In that way, it's, all that stuff is why I really like this episode. And I love that it's connected to the series.
Yeah.
In such strong ways, but so unlike the rest of the episodes.
And I don't think it would have worked as well if they just gave us some other random story and it ended like that. A lot of series, again, that I can't remember, they leave on, thinking that there's going to be another season and they get canceled. And sometimes there's episodes that you don't get you never found out what happens because they planned, but then the series got cut, so you don't know where it's going to go. This has a resolution because I guess they had a tip off that this show could have got canceled, but it's really poignant and it really lends itself that this opens up all this can of worms and it becomes such a, interesting, kind of meditative meta episode where everything's going on. You don't know, it leaves so much room to interpretation. The brilliant acting by, I think, everybody in the cast, and it's just really just leaves the audience wondering, which is good entertainment because it keeps people thinking. It's the movie you watch that you're thinking about the next day or the next week. It's still in your head.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, it's like, it's the reason why we're talking about it, 3 decades later. I think it's interesting. And I'm sure this has to do with more of just like my knowledge and the things I'm into, but I do think it's interesting that, these kinds of science fiction shows, Star Trek, the ones that, they end up having like huge letter writing campaigns that even gave Star Trek another season, when the fans brought Star Trek back for a third season because of their reaction. There was a lot of fans wrote in about about Quantum Leap throughout the show. That's how they knew that like people didn't like the season 5 like opening.
It's another conversation, but it's so interesting back then how you can actually physically write in and the executives will get the hint and change it because they realize the fan base is
and
not liking it. Where today you can't do that. People will voice criticism say stuff they don't like, and then about a series or a franchise, and people are like, it's your fault. It's not ours. Blame the fans.
And we're talking about a time before social media where it wasn't like just people were tweeting.
No, you're right. You're writing
actually
a letter,
physically writing a letter and putting it in the mailbox.
Up, and then you're putting a stamp on it and sending it to, wherever at Universal Studios, and enough people going and doing that, letter writing campaigns and stuff, enough to affect, we're getting too many letters in. And then I think there's also I saw a promo somewhere where there was the head of NBC saying that. They did did you see that? It's like a little mock-up where the head of NBC is like, you think you guys, like they zoom in on him, and I don't know if it's really him. It'd be funny if it was like a Michael Eisner thing where they have him playing himself. But he holds a letter up. He's like, just because you are writing in about Quantum Leap, you think we're going to like move it back to Wednesday nights or give you more? And then all of a sudden the ceiling crashes down and all these other letters come down. And then he's like still sitting there like all covered. He's like, of course we are, so I don't know what it was, maybe to change it to a different night or whatever, but
But I mean, I think it's like these shows that have, it's not just the science fiction stuff, but I think the science fiction shows kind of do lend themselves because sci-fi in general has such a strong, passionate fan base. Just like horror,
like a Firefly or something.
Yeah, that like there's like Leap Fests and that we are still talking about. I didn't listen to any of the episodes, but I discovered that there are podcasts that are totally dedicated to Quantum Leap, and they interview the actors who are in the guest actors in the episodes, or the costume people. So like this show, there's people that are passionate about this show like way more than us, and I love this show, and I just think it's really it's a testament to the imagination and the thought and the mind of Donald Belisario, who was the show was so important to him that he really felt that it was really hard for other people to write. So he ended up writing like 60% of the episodes himself, and then rewrote a lot of the episodes that he didn't write, because it was just like, it wasn't, he had a very definite voice what the show was.
That's like Sterling Cinephant kind of territory right there.
And I think it's one of the reasons why it works is that there's a lot of crazy rules that he had to set up. It's not an easy show to follow some of the time. And yeah, they play fast and loose with those rules throughout the series, but we understand them. We got these kind of difficult, even as kids, we comprehended like these kind of difficult concepts.
And they always kind of laid that on the back burner. They weren't as explicit as you get like in Zemeckis' Back to the Futures, where Doc Brown is putting that front and center. Don't you realize if you find yourself, you're going to, the time, it's like they always lay those rules out. If you do this, it's going to change the future. And then you see the picture fade. It's like, we're just, that's kind of stuff we don't want to, I think that would really bog us down in the weeds if we really tried to hold to those things, because then it leads to a lot of discrepancies of how can this be that or whatever. But
it's one of those shows that was just kind of lightning in a bottle. Like, I think it was just like, it was a great idea, still a great idea. Unfortunately, like the reboot didn't really find an audience, but they played with the magic a little bit. They changed up the ingredients a little with the reboot. And I liked the reboot just fine, but
I heard they invited Spacula back, but he was like politely said, no, thank you. I just want to, good luck with what you guys are doing. But I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, good luck with what you guys are doing, but I kind of want to keep the trueness of the original show, because it would be doing not a disservice, but it would give maybe a finality to this episode we're talking about if I were to reprise the character.
The show ends with he never returns home.
Yes.
And if they find him and he returns home, then it kind of, it undoes what the finale did. There's a way that they could find him and he still never comes back. They find each other in a leap and he's like, all right, man, well, good luck. I'm off to my next mission.
We need another box of Kleenexes.
There was a way to do it, but I give him credit for, like, I'm sure they would have thrown a lot of money at him to come back for that show.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, like Richard Dean Anderson in the MacGyver reboot. We had Michael DeBar came in and reprised his role, not as Murdoch, because the other kid had already started doing it. What's his face from Dark Knight and what's that crazy movie where they conjure the devil on the TV show?
Oh, Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah, remember that his name? That guy.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
I forget his name. It seems like a nice guy.
Yeah,
he played Murdoch on the show.
He and I actually have a lot of mutual friends, but I've never met him.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, invite him over. But he played Murdoch on the MacGyver reboot. So when Michael DeBar came, he couldn't play Murdoch. But I don't know. But I was always hoping. I was always hoping that we'd have an episode or somehow they connected it to Richard Dean Anderson, but he never did. And I don't know if he ever even issued a statement of, no thank you or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so here's my episode watch list if you wanted to prep for the finale. MIA Season 2, Episode 22, which is the Beth episode that we've talked a lot. That is clearly the most important episode.
Not the pilot, though? Not the two-part pilot?
I think the two-part pilot's on it, but I think this is the most important episode because he leaps back specifically to that episode.
All right. You might, Rabbit. You might.
Definitely the Genesis Season 1, Episode 1, because it sets up all the rules. So I think that's a good refresher. So you might want to do that one first. But MIA, which is the Beth episode, A Leap for Lisa, Season 4, Episode 2, Episode 22, is that's the one where he leaps into a young Al. So that's a good one to kind of do because you're getting more of Al's backstory. And a lot of that kind of plays into some of the stuff with the connection he has with Al. A Leap Home Parts 1 and 2, which is when he leaps into his teenage self with his dad.
Oh, that's a tearjerker.
And then, of course, Part 2, which is where
Nom.
we talked a lot about where Al ends up sacrificing himself for another 2 years at POW camp. And then A Leap Back, which is season 4, episode 1, which is where he and Al switch places and he actually goes back. Because then what that episode does is it shows you, even though Sam doesn't remember when he leaps that he's got a wife, it shows like the stakes of him making the decision not to go home.
Yeah. And that piggybacks into my favorite episode, which is the shock.
Which is the episode before that.
The season finale of season 3, which is him getting the ECT and then getting, and then because of the ECT, they're able to get him out of there, but that messes everything up. And then that's why they switch places for, season 4, episode 1, where it's the big old boy.
Yeah. So that's the primer. Those are the primer episodes. If you want to dive into the season finale, those will all be good episodes for you to check out before you get revved up to. And
as we're taking this home, you got to think about like what a better series to be on, as like Scott Bakula and especially for Scott Bakula, but Dean Stockwell as well. But like you get an episodic anthology show like this where it's like almost like a Murder, She Wrote, or to a lesser extent, but you're always getting a new cast of characters, a new thing. I mean, I guess you get that with like murder mysteries where you have a plot, a murder, and something happens. But it's like a show like this with Bakula, like, every episode you're a different character. You're in a different place, you're in a different time. And like, what great, you got to be a great actor.
Yeah.
And like I said, for him winning that Golden Globe for that episode where he's playing like a schizophrenic, he's acting out all the characters he's played. It's unbelievable. And it's so convincing for me.
Yeah.
It's just like, it really shows his acting chops, not just being emotional and like, it just shows his range, so it's like what great like stuff to be able to sink your teeth into as an actor, to be able to have a series like this to work through for 5 seasons.
Yeah, I don't think he ever won an Emmy for it, but for the show. But
he was nominated, but he only got the Golden Globe for that episode, which sucks.
Yeah, it was good.
They were like nominated every year.
Yeah, he was perfect casting for the show, because he's also like, he sings a lot in the show and he's athletic. And so he physically was able to handle a lot of what, I'm sure a lot of it was that they didn't plan for it, but because he had so many different talents, they could write episodes geared around that. He can play Elvis, or he can, dance. He's a dancer in one episode,
He can do like a roundhouse kick, it's like he can do all this stuff.
He can leap into a chimpanzee in an episode.
Yeah. Jesus.
There was some crazy episodes of this show.
Yeah, but they're all, it's like, I don't know. Overall, I give the series like a A-. I mean, I think it's up there. I mean, I don't think people sleep on it too much, but people always laud like Star Trek and Twilight Zone and stuff of that ilk, which is all fantastic. Firefly is starting to get its due, or has got its due on a sub level, but I don't know if people got to remember Quantum Leap too. Quantum Leap, that's what I'm saying. I want some of the merchandise. Give me Al's thing, or I'll put my coffee table be the big thing for the different, all the different lights,
the big light boxes, and start shooting beams across the room.
Yeah, I wanted that thing, for my planetarium in my bathroom.
Yeah. But great show. Like I said, not every episode out of the park, but it's 20 some episodes a season, just, but when an episode lands, man, it does great. And they explored a lot of weird stuff. Like you said, the Stephen King episode is really freaky, where we discover that the whole episode, you don't know that it's just Stevie. And at the end, he's like, hey, Mrs. King. He's like, wait, that's Stephen King. And he's got his dog Cujo's in the front seat of his Plymouth Fury.
Yeah. It's all thinking like, holy fuck. And I got that as a kid too. I was like, oh my gosh. It's like that stuff's great.
Yeah. But a lot of that stuff, like some genuinely eerie stuff, the trilogy that I was talking about with the Sammy Joe Filler stuff, that gets pretty creepy. That's the Meg Foster guests in those episodes, and that
who was married to a time to Stephen McHattie, who played Stopa That was his first wife in the 70s. They were married together, and she did the first season of Cagney and Lacey, but then they fired her, or they killed the show because of a letter writing campaign. They were these aren't my opinions, but they thought it was they were too much of a lesbian couple, was supposedly the problem. The pilot is Loretta, what's her name? Loretta Swift? Swit, yes, from MASH. Yeah. But she couldn't commit to the show because she was on MASH. So then they brought in Meg Foster. She did a season. The series got canceled. And then they replaced Meg Foster with what's her face because they thought the dynamic wasn't right. There was too much of a lesbian. I don't understand that. But they redid it. So Meg Foster was in a season of Cagney and Lacey.
Okay, I'll do you one more. Meg Foster.
Yeah.
She's in Masters of the Universe,
which was on this episode,
which we did.
Yeah.
The girl who plays Teela,
yes,
in that episode. I mean, in Masters of the Universe, the movie.
Yeah,
Scott Bakula's wife.
Oof. That must have come up on set of this episode.
So there you go. Like we're making connections
all over the place, left and right, baby. Oh. Do it all night long. Make these esoteric connections.
All right. So Quantum Leap finale.
Yeah. Good. Mirror
5
image.
buckets of pizza.
Yeah.
How many Mega Joe Colas you got to give this one thing?
I'll give it 4. 4 out of 4, or is there 5?
I don't know how many. I forget what our measurement.
I don't know.
Is.
It's the tolerance level. You know, I don't know how many. If I can
get
drink.
older, can't eat as many buckets of pizza and drink as much caffeine as we used to. We're gonna have to lower the count a little bit.
Yeah, the caffeine's either give me a headache or knock me out.
Give me heart palpitation.
Yeah, I'm gonna fall asleep. That's what caffeine does to me now. I have like a Celsius. It just puts me to sleep. I don't understand it, or it'll just give me a headache. So I don't know, but whatever it is, it's the top.
Yeah,
I love this show.
Good show. Good episode.
Good suggestion.
Good revisiting. It was Kismet.
Yeah,
because you just happened to catch it on TV, and I was talking about us doing it on the show. So,
yeah, I'm glad I saw it back to back. It was good to see the finale right into the pilot. I was like, holy shit, this is a sign. It's a bookmark.
My name's J. Blake Fisher. You can check out my book, Score to Death, Conversations with Some of Horror's Greatest Composers, and Score to Death 2, More Conversations with Some of Horror's Greatest Composers on Amazon. For other book retailers, or for me directly, you can get them at scoretodeath.bandcamp.com. At scoretodeath.bandcamp.com. You can also purchase the Score to Death record album, which is an amazing compilation of horror themes covered by a fantastic group of artists, including the band Voyager 3, the great Alan Howarth, so many great artists on that. Richard Christie does a great cover of a theme from The Fog. Holly Amber Church does The Shining. So it's great. I think there's 12 tracks. It's on vinyl and CD. And
it's on mystery colored vinyl.
Mystery colored vinyl. So when you open that up, you got to take a picture and put it on social media to show me what color you got, because I want to see them all. And all the proceeds from that album go towards finishing the Score to Death documentary, which I'm still working on.
Blake got the Bukkake package for that vinyl release. I'm sorry. We'll cut that out.
And and I have a book about interviewing too, which you can buy as a Kindle on Amazon. So if you're interested in podcasting, or you're writing articles and you want to know my thoughts of interviewing, things I've learned through my years of interviewing everybody from Bruce Campbell to Leslie West and Steve Cropper to 40 to 50 film composers
and filmmakers
and
music makers,
all kinds of people. In terms of, you learn how I get in contact with people, how I choose the people I'm going to interview, how I come up with the questions. And that's called, I need to, next time we need to do an episode, I'll put it in the notes. I think it's called The Interview, a pocket guide to creative conversations for print recording and video, or something like that. But if you go to, if you find Score to Death books on Amazon, You can just click on the author name and it'll take you to that. It's a short little pocket guide of information. And, of course, Dion Baia has his own books.
Yes, I've got Blood in the Streets, and I've got Morse P.I., The Men from Ice House 4, which are in brick and mortar stores as well as on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And I act on the side. That upcoming project I said, I'm participating in the Randy Jurgensen documentary called Real Cop, so I guess keep an eye out for that when it eventually comes out. I don't know how maybe that might be next year or something. I was trying to push too. Also, if people haven't listened to it, we did a joint with Wrong Reel. I did where James Hancock produced. I did an audio play called The Strange Occurrence Out at Fort Courage. The Strange Occurrence Out at Fort Courage. If you haven't listened to it, it's kind of an homage to Kolchak, which was really fun to do. Check that out if you're into like old school audio plays, audio radio shows. And you can find us on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, our page for Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers. And
now on YouTube.
We're on YouTube, and you can find the stuff I've done on acting on YouTube.
Please go subscribe.
And the show's now on YouTube.
Please go subscribe to our show on YouTube because we need subscribers so that we can hopefully eventually make some money. We need at least 500 subscribers. We're at like 60. So
yeah,
head over there and subscribe.
It's a slow burn. I didn't know I put that wick on it. It's about a 5-mile wick before we blow that train trestle up, So
10 years from now, we'll be able to finally monetize this show.
Yeah, and get pennies. So it'll be good. It's well worth the wait. It's the retirement fund. Yeah. So check us out. Yeah, we're putting one out every month. So we're in March of 2026. So we'll have something out for April, which will be exciting and new like the Love Boat. And we hope you like this one. This was like a nice left-hand turn for us. We tend to do sometimes some nice left-hand turns when we get off the road and we hit a rest stop. We see the Burma shave signs and we're like, let's get off at the next rest stop. And we do something a little out of right field. And this was fun because we tend to once in a while do like a TV show. And, we just like to, surprise everything and change it up. So this was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, hope everybody's well. You have a good time. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for all your comments and all that kind of thing and your support. And like the great Hank Williams always says, God willing and the creeks don't rise. We will see you next time.
Later.
Dion and Blake every Saturday night. Popcorn's popping, the pizza's inside. Movie marathons till the morning light. Just friends watching movies on a Saturday night. They have been pals since in their teens, with Mega Jolt Cola fueling their dreams. Watching childhood favorites on the TV screen and talking endlessly about their favorite scenes. Lights go dim, the screen comes alive. In Dion and Blake's world, nostalgia thrives. Buckets of pizza and endless high fives. Saturday night movie sleepovers are where friendships survive.
Saturday night movie sleepover.
Action flicks.
Saturday night movie sleepover.
Horror films.
Saturday night movie sleepover.
Comedies.
Saturday night movie sleepover.
Erotic thrillers.
Saturday night movie sleepover.
Sci-fi.
Saturday night movie sleepovers
Are where friendship survives. Well, Saturday night movie sleepovers are where friendship survives.